Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators are taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. 7 o'clock right here, 102.5 The Game. Barry Trotz will be here with us at 5 o'clock. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So I was just talking to Adam Vingan. Apparently Adam Vingan was all triggered in the YouTube chat the other day, I guess from yesterday. Caroline actually texted me and said Vingan was going wild in the YouTube chat. And so Vingan said that they addressed it at the beginning of the show. I actually meant to look at this, like, where can I find what Vingan said in the YouTube chat? And I kind of forgot about it. And so I didn't even look at it. And then Vingan today was like, I addressed on air why we had to talk about the YouTube chat and what I said in the YouTube chat. And I just thought that was pretty funny. And you know what? That's the best we can do in these times where the teams aren't doing very well, is we can laugh about the good moments and the bad moments and go from there. And yesterday was a viral moment for Brian Callahan. That big fiery defense when asked if his team was soft. And it has gone viral, whether it is SportsCenter or Twitter or TikTok or Pat McAfee or First Take or whatever. It's all over the place. When an NFL coach starts to curse, it's going to get picked up. Again, this was Brian Callahan's "cause it sucks to lose Gentry" moment of the year. But there is another side to this coin. Some people have said, good for Brian Callahan for standing up for his guys. And I even said yesterday, I got a sense that this was more of the manager running out of the dugout to defend his shortstop than it was Brian Callahan really, truly angry at the idea that somebody could think this team is soft. So good for Brian Callahan. And I'm sure everybody in that locker room saw every expletive-laden word of his rant. But there is the other side of the coin. Did you know that the Titans are 2-12 against the spread this season? That means that going into almost every game, Vegas has thought the Titans are going to lose by 5 points. And they lose by at least 6. In 12 of the 14 games, they were underdogs against the Dolphins, and they won that game. And they were underdogs against the Texans, and they won that game. Every other game, they were expected to beat New England by more than they did, or they just straight up didn't cover. They didn't live up to expectations. Last year, remember Rand's "the ball didn't bounce our way" press conference? What he was citing was the fact that the team had lost 7 one-score games and saying that was a positive. That, hey, you flip these 7 one-score games, ball bounces the other way, we win. This year, the Titans have lost 7 games by double digits. They've lost 4 one-score games. So, again, the soft question, I think it's more about being bad than it is about laying down. But I guess you could argue that is up for debate. When pretty much every week, the Titans failed to meet the expectations on the field. Most people, myself included, would argue that they've been bad, more so than that they've quit. But what can't happen for Brian Callahan after that fiery rant yesterday is Washington 2.0 on Sunday. If a Washington 2.0, remember the game 3 weeks ago against the Commanders, J.C. Latham jumped off sides to start the game, and before you could blink, it was 21-0. If a Washington 2.0, where the game is over by 12:25 Central Time, happens, then Brian Callahan loses all credibility with the public. And at that point, you might as well fire him. Again, he can get up there and say, we're not soft. You go into the locker room, you talk to the guys, you tell them they're soft. You look at the way we play. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't watch the tape. You don't know ball. He can say whatever he wants. F this, S that, whatever. If they don't show up on Sunday against Indianapolis and they quit, and when a team quits, the Raiders had a game last year against, the Chargers. had a game last year against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. Ian, do you remember this game?
Doesn't ring a bell right now.
I want to say the Raiders were up like 45-0 at halftime. And Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco, the general manager, got fired the next day. It was a Thursday nighter, and it was just such a drubbing that the Chargers had no choice. They were going to fire these guys at the end of the year, but they had no choice but to fire them the next day because it was that bad. If they go to Indy on Sunday and they completely lay down, Brian Callahan loses all credibility. That's the other side of the coin. When he decided, and again, he took a second to think, because if you listen to the cut, Easton Freeze asks him if he thinks the team is soft, and he said, "You really want to get me going today, huh?" Which was his way of collecting himself, thinking about what he was about to do, and deciding, I'm going to do it. Once he made this about him, now what comes after it is also about him. And this whole season has been about everybody trying to distance themselves from responsibility for why this thing has gone off the rails. They checked every box in the offseason. They had high expectations. They thought they were going to win a lot of games. They're terrible. Well, it's not his fault because, but if this team doesn't show up on Sunday against Indy, then I've seen all I need to see. Then I know that, you know what? Your team is not responding to you. That's the other side of the coin. The Colts are terrible. They are 21st in the NFL in offense and 28th in defense. Anthony Richardson, who you know I love, but I think they've ruined him, has thrown 4 interceptions over the last 2 games, and his yards per attempt have been 4.5. And Vegas, again, going back to the line and the fact that the Titans are 2-12 against the spread this year, Vegas has the game at Indy minus 3.5, which means they expect a 1-score game. So Brian Callahan defended his team yesterday, and everybody heard it. But the question is, what will they do about it? Now, look, you know me. I hope they lose on Sunday, because I think it would hurt the draft if they were to win on Sunday, and because I'm in favor of a house cleaning. So a 45-0 victory for the Indianapolis Colts, I don't think is a bad thing. But I'm also not here trying to justify the coach's existence. And I think the coach probably is. So I hope what we see this Sunday is a repeat of what we saw last Sunday. But if they go to Indianapolis and they play a tough game and they lose, I think it would confirm Callahan's defense. One of those kind of games where you look at the Titans and you say, you know what? They left it all on the field. It would confirm what Brian Callahan said yesterday. It will be a sign that this team really does believe in the coach and that they listen to the coach, and not just that they like the coach. But if they get hammered, some may not want to admit it, but if they lose 41-10 to this terrible Indy team on Sunday, it's a sign that he's not getting through to the team. It's a clear and obvious sign. And they'll deny it. They'll say this had nothing to do with us being soft. The same way that they defended when they got housed by Jacksonville the week after they fired John Robinson in the middle of a work week on a Tuesday. And they said, this had nothing to do with this, even though they'd play Jacksonville a month later with Josh Dobbs at quarterback on the road and play that game closer. If they get hammered, it's a sign they're not listening. If they play tough or if they win, it's a good sign for the coach. His rant yesterday put the apparent softness of this team into the mainstream discussion. Again, I had read the Mike Herndon article. I don't know how many people other than me had read the Mike Herndon article at that point, but now everybody's talking about whether or not the Titans are soft. Their coach says, no, we are not. Let's see if they back him up on Sunday. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. If you want to weigh in, that's 615-737-1025. That is how we are starting today. We will also give away a pair of tickets to the Music City Bowl later today, so be listening for your chance to win those. And coming up next, I heard Derek yelling and screaming. Ian, I don't know if you heard this. Did you hear D-Mace just yelling and screaming about the soft thing?
No.
So Derek said that if you didn't play in the NFL, you can't call the Titans soft. which kind of tired. Again,
players don't seem to like that, though.
Players love the being soft, or the players don't like when non-players talk about football?
Well, mostly the soft thing, particular. Well, I guess you could say both, but yeah,
both.
They definitely don't like being called soft by people who haven't played.
Absolutely. Well, I hate to break it to you, but anybody can do whatever they want to do. But I do love how it's almost like it's so just unfathomable to everybody that this team might be soft. And then when I started to think about it, we'll get to that next. Stillman and company. Tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vandy women's basketball. The Commodores will take on Dayton with a 6 o'clock tip-off. Jake will have the pregame at 5:45. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
There are a lot of folks who think this team is soft physically and mentally. How would you respond to that idea?
I mean, you really want to get me going today? Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's complete and total bull, if you want my honest opinion. These guys are tough, man. They go after it every day. They play hard as hell. And there's at no point have we ever put on tape at any point this season that this is a soft football team. Like I can't even wrap my mind around how that would even be a conversation. I mean, just because we don't win games doesn't mean we're soft. These guys play their ass off. They play hard. They play physical. You can ask any team that plays against us that when they come off the field, they know they played us. Yeah, that makes me relatively angry that would be some presumption. That means you just don't watch the you don't do anything about it, that you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're looking at. So I won't stand for – I'm not going to stand for anybody calling his football team soft. I think that's so. If there's opinions out there that feel that way, then they don't know anything about NFL football. So I'd like you to walk in there and call one of these guys soft and see what happens. This is not a soft football team at all, mentally or physically. And I think one of the things mentally that's really been impressive about the team is that the way that they keep fighting through the way that this season has gone. They've not shown at any point that they're not up to the task. They come out every day and work. They have. I mean, I'm really. You're going to really get me going now. I mean, these guys come out here and they do everything possible to win games. And if there's any assumption anywhere that's outside of this building, again, we don't focus on all those things, but there's no possible explanation to say that this team is soft any way, shape, or form, mentally or physically. And the way that they go about their work it's insulting to me, to them, to everyone that works here. So, I'm not that no chance ever in hell would I ever admit that to be the case, and neither would anybody in this locker room. So you can kind of shove that one right up your to be honest. So
shove it up your ass, said Brian Callahan. Just right up the fanny, up the keister. How dare you say that this team might be soft? And boy, you could tell how mad he got. And now I do remember when I called Jeffrey Simmons soft, which I do think Jeffrey Simmons is soft. There was a talk about like the difference in the meaning of what I'm saying between soft and what maybe some people hear. And sometimes I do think when you say soft, some people hear that as you're using the word you can't say for female genitalia on the radio. You're saying that more so than you're saying like, oh yeah, he's not a tough guy. To me, I think, hey, there's dudes that are just tough. Like Derrick Henry is tough. Dylan Radins is tough. That dude gets back up no matter what happens. And then there's dudes who are soft. PT is soft. Like, I'm just going to tell you, he has no bulldog in him. He never pushes back. He doesn't get his fat ass on the field in, OTAs and everything. He's soft. He's soft. But again, some people will interpret that differently than maybe I would. But again, this idea just so offensive that you could say the Titans are soft. I hadn't even really thought about it. And I read the Herndon article before Callahan went off, and I saw it and thought to myself, well, okay, whatever. And then it was in one ear, out the other. I totally forgot about it. But I was thinking today about that, all this talk, right? Are the Titans soft? How dare you? Here was D-Mace on the midday show today, again, with the how dare you on the soft talk.
If you take offense to it, then damn with you. I don't care. You have no authority if you have not played that game, if you have not been in those locker rooms, if you have not sweated on that field, if you have not spent those hours, days, years sweating and doing all this stuff. You are not qualified to tell a team whether they are soft or not. You're not. And if you want to get mad at me, damn you. I don't give a hell. I don't. You are not qualified. Just like I'm not qualified to tell those guys on the ice how to do their business. I may have an opinion on, based upon what I've been through as an athlete, what can probably be going on like mentally in the game with them, or after a loss, how they may feel. But I still, even though I played the professional sport of football, I can't tell them, oh, y'all are soft on that ice, because I haven't been in that locker room. I don't understand what they're going through and what they're doing.
Oh, you didn't play, so you can't comment. See, it's so offensive. But I started thinking about it. And I was like, you know what? Is this football team soft? Again, before Brian Callahan got so offended at the notion that this football team was soft, I never really thought about it. I wouldn't, again, I know losers when I see them, and I wouldn't say that the Titans are a group of quitters. Like, I wouldn't say that this team has no toughness to it, but this ain't Mike Vrabel's Titans, folks. Like, that's not Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and Ben Jones, and it's not that football team. The 90 guys and they still win the division, that's not that football team. Like, it's not even close to that football team. And then I think about the things that happened over the course of the year. You know, Paul brought up the Jarvis Brownlee saying that guys were affected by the cold. And Vrabel and Callahan can say, well, he's a tough SOB. Well, that's great, but he still said it. And not only that, Brownlee didn't say that about himself. Brownlee said that about other guys. He said guys won't admit it, but they were affected by the cold. That is saying these guys are soft. That happened. It didn't not happen, and you cannot debate. That's just a fact. What about the fact that the Titans signed a guy to be their starting right guard, and he quit 2 weeks into training camp? What about the fact that the Titans spent all offseason talking about competition on the right side of the offensive line, only to have PT sit out the entire OTA and the beginning of training camp, and then they just gave him the job? How about the fact that PT has been the worst offensive lineman in the NFL this year? And guess who's still starting at right tackle for the Titans? PT. Does that seem overly tough to you? You guys saw the Packer game. PT got benched, and Brian Callahan's going to put his foot down, and next thing you know, guess who's back at right tackle? PT. Everything they did that was bad this offseason, have a bad day of practice. Brian Callahan would say afterwards, well, you know, we got to give Denard's defense credit. They're really good out there. Will Levis bounces a ball into the lake, and everybody says, well, oh, no. He bounced it, Jared. Bounce. I was talking to D-Mace about that today. D-Mace, you ever seen a ball go in the lake? No. So even though this ball bounced, that's a first. But no. They throw an interception on the first play of the Seahawks scrimmage, and Brian Callahan doesn't send them back out there to do it again. No, it'll be fine. That's really building up a callus. Jeffrey Simmons throws a punch the first day of pads. Brian Callahan keeps him in practice, and then Simmons comes running out of the locker room after it's over to go yell at Buck because Buck tweeted something. Oh, the humanity! L'Jarius Sneed has some mysterious injury that the team doesn't talk about for 6 weeks. Then they concoct this unbelievable story that everything has to absolutely fall into place in order for you to believe. But when L'Jarius Sneed was asked about it, he just said, could be out there tomorrow. Turns out he won't be out there the rest of this season. So what exactly about the Titans is tough? The fact that they keep showing up for work every day? That's what the paycheck is for. I hear Brian Callahan talk about ask anybody we play. You know, I remember when Mike Vrabel was the coach of the Titans, and I remember when the Titans used to be good. And the thing about the Titans was you always knew you had to strap it up and get ready for war. With Vrabel as the coach, you knew it was going to be tough. You knew it was going to be physical. You knew it was going to be one of those games. Does anybody feel that way about this team? Brian Callahan says, ask whoever we play. You mean if you go into the locker room after the game and you say to the Colts, was this one of the most physically daunting games you had this season? They're going to say yes. That these are as tough as the teams when Ben Jones and Derrick Henry used to be out there? I have a hard time believing that. So when it comes to this idea of the Titans being soft, Brian Callahan can say whatever he wants. He can use the F word, the S word, the GD word, the SOB word. He can do whatever he wants. And sure, it's offensive to ask because it's questioning your desire. But at the same time, we keep adding up stuff over the season, and there's been too many things that if I was the coach, would not fly. And I told you guys when he didn't kick Simmons out of practice and training camp, if I was the coach, that's not what I would have done. Maybe his parenting is different than mine. L'Jarius Sneed, mysterious quad injury. Nobody seems to understand it. L'Jarius Sneed's asked about it, and he pleads the fifth. He couldn't just be a man and talk about what happened. He has to be super, super, super secretive about it. Jarvis Brownlee did say it was too cold. Peter Skoronski did say they're not responding well to adversity. What do they always say about adversity? It doesn't build character, it reveals it. You can tell me with a straight face and with as many curse words as you want that this team's not soft. But then when I start to go through the entire year, starting with the starting right guard who stunk in Washington, being gifted the position, and then quitting 2 weeks into camp and not calling anybody back. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of soft stuff around here. I advocated that the Titans keep Caleb Farley on the active roster. Not because I thought he was any good, but because I think it's important to show, hey, these guys that commit to the program, that are going to work their tails off no matter where they're drafted, no matter. It's why I'm rooting for Dylan Radins, because they're tough. But instead, the Titans have become the team of entitled. PT, that's your position no matter what. I think it's easier to make an argument just based off of what I've seen, being fair. I think it's easier to make an argument that they are soft than to make an argument that they're not soft. Again, when did the Titans really bow up this season? Was it when they played Buffalo? Was it when they played Detroit? Was it when they played the Chargers? Jeffrey Simmons came out after they beat the Texans and said, yeah, I think we were too hungover from our celebrating the Texan win. Now, Brian Callahan says that didn't happen, but it's crazy how many things Brian Callahan says after the fact didn't happen when the players say they do. So I never even thought about this team being soft until yesterday. But the more that I get finger wagged at and get told, you can't call this team soft, you don't understand, you don't, the more I'm like, you guys went around town telling everybody that you checked every box, how good this team was going to be. You pumped their tires. They did the same thing. And yet you're the most penalized team in the league. Remember Arden Key threw Vrabel under the bus? When he said, now we correct our mistakes. We didn't before. Doesn't look that way to me. But I guess I just don't know anything about football. Because the head coach says, if you think this team's soft, you don't know anything about football. Starting to add a lot up. And there's a lot I don't like. 615-737-1025. We're to your phones on all of this. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks that we here at 1025 The Game and Cromwell Media have teamed up with the Predators for coats for kids benefiting the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. Donate a new or slightly used coat at the Ford Ice Centers in Antioch, Bellevue, or Clarksville. And also tomorrow, we will be live, Stillman and Company, that's right. But we'll be live starting at 9 a.m. until 6 p.m., giving away swag and tickets to an upcoming Preds game at the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue. Coat donations will also be accepted at the Preds home game at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, December 21st. For more information, visit thegamenashville.com/coats.
Somebody yesterday said, well, Javon Curse didn't like the cold. Do you think he wasn't tough? That's not what he's saying. Now, later, Callahan said, well, I think he was making an excuse. And Brownlee, didn't want to comment any further on it. But in the moment, after a bad loss to Washington, when it was 40 degrees, which is not NFL cold, he said, we're not locked in. I think guys let the cold get to them. You have to play through things you don't like, which is saying they didn't play through things they don't like in a game where they were down 28 in 20 minutes. Does that sound mentally tough?
No.
I mean, that's fair. These are two examples Mike Herndon used. I don't think that those two examples show a team that's mentally tough. And I don't know why there's any I understand why Brian Callahan's going to defend him, but I don't understand any media or fans jumping to defend their mental toughness.
There you go. That was PK. I do love the whole Jarvis Brownlee thing. It's like, oh, no, you don't understand. I'm like, no, I mean, he said that he thought that the cold got to him. Like, he was like, yeah, guys aren't going to admit it, but the cold got to him. No, that's not what happened. That's not what he meant. What did he mean? Phone line shared by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jared is going to kick us off today on the program. Jared, go ahead.
Hey, Stillman, I got a couple things. I wrote them down, so bear with me. First, congrats on the baby boy.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's a big one. To D. Mace's point on, like, how nobody in the NFL who didn't play can't comment on the team. Last I checked, Callahan didn't even play before. So, like, how does that give him credibility using that logic? And then the second thing was, like, the benching of Levis. Like, there's a couple of things. Is the owner okay with going out and winning more games and jeopardizing the bad draft pick? Or is she telling him, hey, I don't know if I'm bringing you back next year. You better figure out something. And I just, looking at the Raiders seems like they're openly tanking from the top down. And Antonio Pierce is going to retain his job next year. And it seems like everybody is on the same page. I don't know if everybody's on the same page in Titans Rainbow Land. So those are just some things that I got going on. And yeah, man, I hope you have a great day.
Yep, thank you for your call. I actually thought the same thing when D. Mace was ranting. I'm like, I don't think Brian Callahan played in the NFL. So you don't understand. I mean, every time somebody says something like that, and I love D. Mace and I respect him and his experience and all of that, he was a great player. But every time I hear that, I think about Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is one of the two greatest point guards of all time, him and Magic Johnson. Steph Curry, you can argue, different kind of player, but Steph's up there too. So one of the three best point guards of all time. He was a terrible broadcaster, a terrible coach, and a terrible executive. So what did he know? I guess nothing. But when it came to playing ball, Zeke was pretty damn good. The idea of what this quarterback change means about the coach's job status, I think, is fascinating. And I don't think it's getting enough talk. And in fact, is a topic today, which is Brian Callahan making this change because he's just sick of watching Will Levis play quarterback? Or is he making this change because he's trying to sell the owner on the idea that I'm not the problem, Levis was the problem, I'm going to play Mason, and you'll see that Levis is the problem and that I'm not the problem? Because the way I view it is Mason Rudolph has been incredibly similar to Will Levis this season, with just a tick better. Because Mason Rudolph did beat New England at home in overtime, where Will Levis did lose by a scotch to Jacksonville at home. Similar caliber opponents, similar situations, and the Titans eked out a victory with Rudolph, and they eked out a loss with Levis. And maybe that's the difference. But I do wonder if Brian Callahan is going to say, hey, I'm taking Levis out and I'm going with the other guy because I want you to see how much better we are, how much better I am when he doesn't play, as a way to justify his job to the coach. That's all I can come up with, because I don't really see the tangible benefit of making a quarterback switch. It's not like they can turn this season around and get into the playoffs. And it's not like anybody out there thinks that Mason Rudolph is a starting option for this team into 2025. One texter says, do you agree with Big Joe saying the reason that Brian Callahan said what he said yesterday was because he knows he's done after the season? I did not hear Big Joe say that, but at the same time, I don't think so. I'm trying to read between the tea leaves. See, there's a problem with the reporting here. And Big Joe wasn't reporting. Clearly, Big Joe was just, this is what I think. And he said it. He was speculating. But there's really not a lot of good reporting around the Titans. There's really not. You look at the Patriots, for instance, and there are, whether it's Tommy Curran or whether it's Greg Bedard in the Boston Sports Journal or whether it's Ben Volen in the Boston Globe, there's always some sort of gossip in there. Sources close to Robert Kraft say, same with the Jets. There's a story today about how stupid the Jets are. With the Titans, this time last year, all anybody was saying was Vrabel was for sure coming back. Again, my report, I gave you the gossip the day before it happened. I said, I'm hearing Vrabel could be out. And I said, I'm hearing that Vrabel wants, somebody to be above he and Rand to be the president of football, and that he wants more defined roles for Brinker and Anthony Robinson, and that, that Amy's probably going to fire him. And she did. But again, the reporting, I hear Paul say well, I hear they're all coming back, but he won't. He keeps insinuating that he knows that they're all coming back, but he really won't put his foot down on it. Paul, I'll be on at 7:00 tomorrow morning on Robbie and Rex Road, and Paul's in. I'm going to ask Paul, will you report today that Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, and Chad Brinker will be back in the same capacity next year? Because he keeps hitting at it, but I don't know that he'll actually go and put his foot down, and I'm not sure anybody else is kind of doing the reporting in that front. One texter says that the GM is soft. So I've been thinking about this because I heard the midday show talking about, look, the organization from Amy on down is definitely soft. But we're talking about the players and the team when it comes to this being soft, not the GM that won't do a press conference or that says the ball didn't bounce their way or whatever. And I'm like, but doesn't that set the tone for the entire organization? Did Jeffrey Simmons feel empowered to go up to Buck at training camp and act like a total a-hole because everybody from the top on down had done nothing but sniff his used jock after every practice? So misty and minty free, Jeff, that he felt like, well, I'm the man. I can do whatever I want. I can make myself look like a total ass. And then he did. Nope, Jeff's jock still smells so minty delicious. And that starts with the GM and to a certain extent the owner. Gentry wrote this in his column, and I don't disagree with this, the column that nuked Amy last week. And he said that he thinks a lot of the toxic positivity that came out of the building this offseason about how everybody was getting along and everybody was happy and everybody was singing Kumbaya and everything else. As all that was going down, Gentry said that might be for the owner's ears as much as it is for the fans' ears. And so I do wonder if that softness did creep from the top on down. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry I have to. Matt from Nashville says the Jarvis Brownlee storyline got out of control. It was a few weeks ago where a rookie said something kind of stupid that seemed like he was calling out some of his teammates for not giving it their all. He said he was possibly attributing it to the cold. He's one of the only ones who has shown some fight this season, was alluding to his teammates not giving their all. Why is he the poster child for the Titans being cold? So for me with Brownlee, it's more so the fact that he said it as a reflection that the team is soft than it would be that he's soft, but it's the fact that everyone just wants to ignore that he said it that I have a problem with because he said it. Not that I think Brownlee is soft. Look, man, Brownlee went to Louisville. I don't think Brownlee's soft. One texter says, maybe Callahan is overreacting to the soft comments now because he regrets not defending Simmons' soft comments then. One texter says, Brian Callahan wants you to know we're not soft, we just suck. I do find some of this pretty funny. Chris Sanders joins us next on the program. His reaction to all the soft talk. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, be sure to join us. That's right. Me, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks in Madison Sunday at 9:30 for the award-winning pregame show. We'll get you set for the Titans and the Colts. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Chris Sanders joins us now on the program, presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. So, Chris, we start on the soft comments heard around the world yesterday. What did you make of it? And are the Titans soft?
No, man, they're not a soft football team. This is what people got to really, really understand, and it may be a little different. But we, as a football player, as a former football player, man, we put our lives on the line, every single weekend. And I know, like, oh, yeah, that's your job. But at the end of the day, we chose to do it. But you can say a team is undisciplined or they're not a very good football team. They have all the penalties. That's your right to say that, absolutely. But when you start calling people soft and they're this and that, you wouldn't say it to their face. So I just can't. I can't stand when somebody calls somebody soft, and then the people that are really saying it, if they get a freaking cold, they're gonna take off the whole day. So what are we talking about? Say the team is bad. Say the team is a penalized team, but don't call a grown man soft.
Okay, let me ask you then about a couple things that have happened this year. Jarvis Brownlee said after the Washington game that some of the guys were affected by the cold 42-degree weather. Sounds kind of soft, right?
No, that's not something. You're just cold. I mean, let me tell you something.
But when you say you let it affect you,
yeah, but he made it. A lot of times people are taking that out of context. Let me tell you something. We played in Cleveland where it was really, 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 really cold. Me and Derek Mason like, man, it's freezing out here. That don't mean that we're soft. We're just saying the elements are very, very cold. And I just think it's,
did y'all win that game by 30 points?
I know we won by 30. I mean,
come on, man.
I know we won by 30, but say the team is bad. Say the team is undisciplined. But when you start calling people soft, I just don't think it's cool. I mean, look at the situation that happened a couple of years ago with Hamlin. I mean, he's putting his life on the line. Guys are putting their life in jeopardy to make you smile. So how is that being soft?
Yeah, but you put your life in jeopardy every time you get behind the wheel of a car. I mean, that doesn't mean that you're super tough.
Yeah, but okay, give me the definition of what tough is.
Oh, my God, I got in my Hyundai Sonata today. I am a tough guy.
Give me a definition between soft and tough. Is tough mean that you're like, oh, I'm really, really tough? Or it's just fighting through the element?
I mean, I look at Dylan Radins as a guy who I think is really tough. Because Dylan Radins was drafted high and he was benched in the beginning, and then he got into the game and he tore his ACL and he came back from that, and then he was sent to the bench, and then he played well, and then a new coach comes in and they move him to a different position and they bring in Sadiq Charles, and Dylan Radins shows up every day and he always has the right attitude and he's in good shape and he plays his hardest, and no matter what happens, you're going to get the best effort every day from Dylan Radins. I think Dylan Radins is a tough guy.
Yeah.
I think somebody who quits, I think they're soft. You brought up L'Jarius Sneed, and you said, at the time, I think if they were 7-2 and not 2-7, I think L'Jarius Sneed would be out there. To me, I interpret that as Chris Sanders saying L'Jarius Sneed is soft.
Let me ask you a question. If you went up to Simmons, if you went up to Sneed, if you went up to the guys and called them soft, what do you think would happen?
I mean, look, I would have no problem. I called Simmons soft one time. Simmons saw it, went on another radio show, went on a safe space to complain about it. I have no problem going up to Simmons, and I actually think this year has kind of hardened Simmons a little bit. If you listen to his comments, he's a lot more down to earth. It feels like he got a reality check this year. But the Jeffrey Simmons of July and August was soft. That stuff with Buck Rising, that was soft. And I got no problem saying that, and he could walk right here, and I'd say it to his face. And again, I mean, I highly doubt a guy making $23 million a year would punch me in the face.
Yeah,
but whatever.
But what is the definition of soft? That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Your definition of soft to a football player or to somebody that doesn't play football, what's the definition of soft? That's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. What's the definition? When a guy doesn't want to play in the cold, when a guy doesn't want to do a certain thing, he's just like mentally tough. But this guy's you have a guy that can run through somebody's face or knock somebody out. So which one is being soft?
So, again, I'll use the Dylan Radins comparison with the L'Jarius Sneed thing. Do you think it matters to Dylan Radins if you're 2-7 or 7-2 about whether or not he's going to show up on Sunday?
No, I know he's going to show up.
When you played with Bruce Matthews, did anything affect that man? The record of the team, because you played on some bad teams.
Absolutely.
Played on some good teams. The injuries,
Absolutely.
did any of that ever affect Bruce Matthews?
Nope.
Would you say Bruce Matthews is one of the toughest players you've ever played with?
Tough guy. I mean, tough guy.
So when L'Jarius Sneed is like, yeah, I got this mysterious quad injury and I might be out there tomorrow or I might not be out there the rest of the season, and you, Chris Sanders, are speculating that, hey, if this team was better, he might be out there. Maybe he's just not out there because they stink. To me, that is soft because you would never see a tough guy like Dylan Radins do that.
But see, you're going about the record. What if this team was saying the exact same thing and they were 12-2? Would you call it a soft team?
If they were 12-2? I haven't talked about their record one time with them being a representation of them being soft.
We're calling a team soft because of their record. What if they were 12-2?
But I haven't mentioned their record.
They had the same complaints. What if they had the same complaints? If they were 12-3 and Brownlee said, "Man, it's kind of hard to play in the cold," would you call them soft?
Did they win the game?
What if they lost?
But he would have never said the cold affected us in a bad way if they won the game. Because nobody ever talks about what happened bad when you win.
You're going by the record.
But I haven't even brought up the record, Chris.
But what if they were 12-2 and they said the exact same thing?
Well, they're not 12-2. And when they were 12-2, they did. When you were on a team that was 12-2, you didn't say things like that.
Jared, what? Okay, you still didn't answer my question. What the heck is the definition of soft? You didn't answer the question.
To me, somebody who's soft is a quitter.
Okay, name a couple of guys who quit on the team.
You've already talked about Sneed.
Who?
Sneed.
I don't know about that. I'm not saying it. I'm saying that you got to give me the definition of what soft means. Because your definition and all these, no disrespect, all these sports writers calling people soft, but y'all can't show up if y'all got a freaking cold. I mean, come on, man. I just listen. I do a lot of stuff on radio and I do a lot of stuff on TV. But how dare I call somebody soft? I don't care what they do. I mean, and listen, I'm not going to get on my soapbox and say, "Oh, I play football," and they don't. I'm not coming off that soapbox. I'm just saying, what the heck is the definition of being soft? I think sometimes we're looking at the record and looking at the penalties and looking at all the stuff that a bad team does. Say they're a bad team. Say they're a penalized team. Say they're a team that is losing. But to call people soft, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, you've seen teams that lay down and quit. You've seen teams that don't want to be there. You know, we call them the Cancun on 3 teams.
Absolutely.
Like those do exist. And with Mike Vrabel, again, like with Mike Vrabel, we never questioned whether or not the team was tough. And I think we can agree with that. And they showed up.
100%.
And every week of last year, they beat Jacksonville the last week of the year when they had nothing to play for because that's Mike Vrabel's team showed up. I do not feel the same level of toughness with this team as I did with any of the Mike Vrabel teams.
Okay. Tell me the difference between this team and the team that just Vrabel left when they were, 5-12, 6-12 or something like that? What was the difference?
That team didn't quit.
They had.
Did I lose Chris? No! I was wondering where he was going on that one. Oh, goodness. And we didn't even get to him at the quarterback. See if Chris is. We lost Chris. He probably inadvertently hit the mute button. There he goes. Okay. Well, it was a good spirited debate. It sounds like the award-winning pregame show will be very exciting, very feisty on Sunday. So get excited for that. I do want to get to the quarterback situation, 615-737-1025 as well. But did you hear this latest story from the Jets? I have these. It's unbelievable. You will not believe it. And I found the most depressing part about it. We'll do it next. Someone to Company 125 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, Bridgestone Arena. Preds and Penguins tonight. Barry Trotz right here, 5 o'clock. TD for the Power Hour at 4 o'clock. Again, right here, all on 102.5 The Game. Did you see this story in The Athletic today about the Jets, Jets? It feels like, Ian, what is it? Like in every 6 months, there's a new Diana Rossini and a couple of other cohorts that come up with a story about the Jets that
Probably
is
less than 6 months.
probably like every 4 months, that you will not believe how freaking stupid the Jets are. Probably more like every 2 months.
Probably, yeah.
Today on You Won't Believe How Stupid the Jets Are, Diana Rossini and her company revealed something that reads like a piece out of the satire magazine, The Onion. The Jets owner, Woody Johnson, vetoed a Jerry Jeudy trade with the Denver Broncos. Why? Was it because Jeudy hasn't produced as much as we thought he would coming out of Alabama in 2020? I thought Jeudy was going to be a superstar. No, that's not why. Is it because there were rumors that Jerry Jeudy was a bad locker room guy? No, that's not why. Did the analytics department come out with a report that said Jerry Jeudy doesn't fit the metrics of what we're looking for? No, that's not it. You want to know why the Jets owner vetoed the Jerry Jeudy trade? Because of his Madden football rating. Jets owner Woody Johnson saw the Madden football rating, said, nope, we don't want him. Apparently, Woody Johnson was skeptical of offensive lineman John Simpson, who had a breakout season last year with the Ravens because of his awareness rating in Madden football, and was kind of against signing him, and Simpson's been signed and has been okay. Yes, that is something that is actually being reported by a reputable outlet, by somebody who's got sources. It's not hard to put the pieces together here. Joe Douglas, the fired GM, Robert Saleh, the fired coach, they're probably telling The Athletic, yeah, Woody Johnson, we thought we had Jerry Jeudy and Woody Johnson vetoed it. And they probably called up the Broncos, and the Broncos said, yeah, we couldn't believe it. They said Jerry Jeudy deal was done. Then they called back and said, no. Madden football has come out and said Jerry Judy's not good enough. We don't want him. LOL at the Jets, right? Another week, another Diana story demolishing how stupid the Jets are and how the crazy owner can't stop doing things. Every single week, they look worse and worse and worse, and everybody gets the blame. Saleh got the blame. Douglas got the blame. Aaron's getting the blame. At the end of the day, buck stops with the owner. We can laugh at the Jets too, right? Au contraire. Did you know that the Jets, with all of their dysfunction, in this Diana story, there was a piece in there where Aaron Rodgers, after they had won the game, when Jeff Ulbrich became the interim head coach, Aaron Rodgers had taken a game ball to present the coach in the locker room, only to be upstaged by Brick Johnson. Ian, are you even familiar who the hell Brick Johnson is?
Never heard of him.
I guess he's the owner's son? The
Brick.
owner's son.
It's like Biff from Back to the Future.
The owner's son took a game ball and presented it to Garrett Wilson. Ruined the moment for everybody. LOL at the Jets. Let's laugh at the Jets. Did you know that the Jets have 4 wins this season? You have 3. And the Jets, for all their faults this year, for all the high expectations with that great defense and Aaron Rodgers' return, and they fired Saleh and demoted Nathaniel Hackett, and they have Todd Downing calling the plays, and it's a dumpster fire every day. They beat the Titans at Nissan Stadium. So this unbelievably dysfunctional organization that has fired their coach, fired their GM, has Todd Downing calling plays. The owner is vetoing trades because of the Madden football ratings. They're still better than you. That team, they are better than you are. They beat Jacksonville last week. You didn't beat Jacksonville 2 weeks ago. So again, we can laugh at the Jets, But what does that say about your operation? I keep referencing the fact that since you fired John Robinson, you have 9 wins. The Carolina Panthers over the same period have 8. We laugh about Carolina. Boy, I'll tell you, Tepper in Carolina, he's a real dumbass. He's won 1 less game than you. Boy, that Woody Johnson with the Jets, he's a real kook. They've won 1 more game this year than you. Their owner is vetoing Madden trades. And they're still better than you. What does that tell you? This is the scary part about the Titans. Because Woody Johnson isn't going to sell the Jets. And David Tepper isn't going to sell the Carolina Panthers. They have to work around the stupidity. The good news is Woody Johnson hasn't fielded a winner this decade. And David Tepper has never had a good football team. Amy has. When Amy had somebody that knew football running her operation and a real coach, and she just showed up at the tailgates on Sunday and took pictures with the fans. She can still go back to that. It's not as powerful. It's not as exciting as getting up there and saying, that's my GM, that's my coach, I made the trade, I this, I that. Owners' egos have been a huge problem in the NFL for a long, long, long time. When Jerry Jones was running the Dallas Cowboys post Jimmy Johnson, and we know why Jerry and Jimmy broke up, but post Jimmy Johnson, Dave Campo is the coach, 5-11, 5-11, 5-11. Jerry finally put his arms up and said, Bill Parcells, save the team. And immediately Bill Parcells made the playoffs. And then Bill Parcells and Sean Payton, his quarterback coach, found an undrafted free agent, Tony Romo. And they transitioned to him. And Jerry could only go for so long until Jerry had to get back in and make Wade Phillips the coach. There's a reason why Dallas doesn't win. You know what that reason is. There's a reason why the Packers, who don't have an owner, do. There's a reason why the Ravens win. And the Steelers never have a losing record. But we know Amy can do it because we've seen Amy do it. But before we laugh about the Jets vetoing a Madden trade because of the Madden ratings, let's not forget, as dysfunctional as they are, as bad as they are, as laughable as they are, they're better than you. You can say whatever you want about Rocky Marciano, but at the end of the day, he did whoop Joe Louis' ass. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So it is a funny story, but it is depressing. It reminds me of a story from college, my freshman year. The Titans had drafted Chris Johnson, and these guys on my floor, they were arguing with me that Darren McFadden ran a faster 40 time than Chris Johnson. And I said Chris Johnson was faster than Darren McFadden because Chris Johnson, I remember he'd set a record with his 40 time. And they were like, all right, let's go down to BK's room and get the game on and see who's faster. And that's how a football team makes their decisions in 2024. It's unbelievable. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. PK is convinced of something. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 again.
I don't even know that Mason Rudolph helps you necessarily, gives you a better chance to win. I don't think Callahan's in trouble. I mean, obviously it would help him to win games in the eyes of management, in the eyes of Amy Adams Strunk, who's the people that matters. But I've been fishing around, and I get the sense that everybody expects Amy Adams Strunk to stick with the status quo and to be patient.
That was Paul Kaharski on Monday on with Robbie and Joe. And so now that he's in with Robbie, they've talked a lot about Rand Carthon. Excuse me. They have talked a lot about Rand Carthon. And they've written at paulkaharski.com a lot about Rand Carthon. And Paul keeps hinting that he hears, hey, they're coming back. In a story he wrote 2 days ago about Rand Carthon's roster versus what he inherited versus what it is now, Paul writes, quote, indications are he will be safe after the final 3 games, even as the Titans finish with 10-plus losses for the 3rd consecutive season for the first time since 1983 to 86. It'll be the first time in franchise history that they go 3 consecutive seasons, posting increasingly worse records. So again, Kaharski says indications are he'll be safe. Paul said to Robbie and Joe, I did some fishing, and they're not expecting Amy Adams Strunk to make a change. And yet, for whatever reason, there's a part of me that's like, so is he coming back? Or are you saying, hey, just some of the people that I've talked to who are not in a position to make that kind of decision or know that kind of stuff are thinking they'll be back? It's well established on this program. Kaharski talks to Chad Brinker. It's beyond obvious. Well, but does Chad Brinker have the authority to know whether or not Rand is coming back, or to be able to tell Paul that Rand's coming back? And again, we learned last year, just because the Titans say somebody is coming back doesn't mean that they will come back, because Joe made a big deal about the fact that his colleague Diana Rossini reported that the Titans were bringing Vrabel back. And Joe said, it's not like Vrabel, who uses Diana Rossini as a mouthpiece. It is not as if Vrabel is a strong enough source for Joe's outlet, The Athletic, the New York Times. Vrabel would not be a strong enough source for Diana Rossini to be allowed to publish that kind of material at The Athletic. Well, Paul has no balls. Paul's boss is Paul, as you could probably guess by paulkaharski.com. So when Paul says all indications are Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, and Brian Callahan are coming back, I want to know, is this like a legitimate, like, Paul, are you telling us? Because we've talked about there's a difference between, hey, I'm telling you, and I'm just telling you. So I need to know more about this fishing expedition, but it is obvious that, at least from Jared versus Joe yesterday, to me, that Paul has convinced Joe that Carthon, Callahan, and Brinker are all coming back next year. If that is the case, and Amy brings them all back, I will be stunned. But for all the Pauls and the Joes and the Zach Lyonses out there that think Rand Carthon should keep his job, think that the Titans should bring it back, think that we need to be patient, even though, again, the team keeps getting worse. Can I ask a question? Why can't the Titans be like the Denver Broncos? I keep hearing that the model is the Detroit Lions, but you don't have Penei Sewell, and you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you don't have Brian Branch. You took a guard, and he's not even very good. The Lions had a veteran quarterback the entire time. You don't have a quarterback. You're not the Lions. Midway through their first year in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch acquired Jimmy Garoppolo, who won their last 6 games. They had a quarterback. You don't. They can't be the model. Why can't the Detroit Lions be the model? Because they're too good. Because they drafted well. They made trades. They added draft picks. But the Denver Broncos could be the model. The Broncos spent about a year and a half making some bad decisions. And it all started on draft night 2021. Now, they did draft Patrick Surtain, who's very good. But it started on draft night of 2021 because that was the night that Aaron Rodgers demanded a trade. And all of a sudden, Denver became the most popular spot. And Denver didn't have a quarterback. Denver had tried. They signed Joe Flacco. They drafted Drew Lock. They drafted Paxton Lynch. They had Trevor Siemian. Post Peyton, they tried everything. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater. They wanted a quarterback. And they rolled out the red carpet for Aaron Rodgers. They hired Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron's coach, to be the head coach in Denver. They set up the money so that they'd be able to pay Aaron or pay another quarterback and still spend in free agency. They even had the backup plan ready to go. When Aaron decided to stay with the Packers, boom, in comes the trade for Russell Wilson. But the Russell Wilson trade was a true disaster. All the picks, all the money, and the losing, and the embarrassment. So what did Denver do? Was Denver patient? Well, I mean, I know Nathaniel Hackett is a total boob and is in over his head, but we got to be patient. Or did they do something about it? Nathaniel Hackett didn't even make it a full season. And then the Denver Broncos went out and got Sean Payton, a real coach. And look, it hasn't been smooth sailing for the Broncos. The year with Russell was very contentious between Payton and Russell, and they sat him, and it was embarrassing. People questioned the Bo Nix pick. But at the end of the day, didn't you think Sean Payton knew what he was doing? That brings me back to the Titans. Why can't you do what the Broncos did? It's not like Sean Payton has won 15 Super Bowls in New Orleans. He won one. It's not like Sean Payton every year in New Orleans, even with Drew Brees, they were good. They had bad years. But again, you had to know that at that point, there was a Christmas Day game where they got housed by the Rams, where the offensive line didn't even go to pick Russell up, and the backup quarterback got in a fight with the line, and Hackett got fired the next day. There had to be a sense that if we pay Sean Payton $1 gazillion to run the operation, I know we won't be an embarrassment. And that's what happened. If you hire Pete Carroll to run the Tennessee Titans and to be the head coach, and I don't give a rat's ass that Pete's 73. These jobs, I don't know if you've learned this, they don't last forever. But if you hired Pete Carroll, who's probably the closest thing to Sean Payton that's out there right now, if you hired Pete Carroll to run the Titans, you think they'd be the total embarrassment they are right now, where the prevailing question about the organization is whether or not the team is soft? Probably not. So number one, I need to know more about Paul's sourcing when it comes to all of this. Hey, indications are Rand's coming back. My fishing says Rand's coming back. Chad's coming back. Brian's coming back. Is this coming from Chad? Or is this coming from Amy, Kenneth, Barclay? Somebody who actually has the pull or the knowledge to know if he's coming back. That I need to know. Secondly, if he does, I have to ask, why? Patience, Jared. The Broncos weren't patient. 49ers weren't patient. Texans weren't patient. Hate to say it, they're doing pretty well, right? 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. We continue 1025-1063 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there, while I do have your attention, that this week's Nashville's Best Deal is from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. Brewster's offers handcrafted cakes, pies, and original ice cream flavors of peppermint Oreo, eggnog, and gingerbread man. Enjoy the magic of homemade happiness this season. Visit theGameNashville.com/deals now and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Ho, 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 Santa Jared is in a good mood. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. You'll win a 4-pack of tickets to the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl at Nissan Stadium on Monday, December 31st, right around the corner. Get excited for all of that. Let's get to your phone, 615-737-1025. By the way, I love this Woody Johnson Jets story. I do have a quick thought before I get right into the phones on the Woody Johnson Jets story. So a buddy of mine that works in the media that I worked with at Sirius, he texted me about Vrabel and about the Jets. And he was like, what do you think about Vrabel? All my Jet friends, they want Vrabel. And I was like, look, I mean, it looks like that's what you're trying to do by interviewing Thomas Dimitrov, a former Patriot, and interviewing John Robinson, a former Patriot, and Mike Vrabel's former boss. Like, it looks like that's the path you're trying to go. But if you want Vrabel, you just need to hire Ryan Cowden as the GM. You need to make Vrabel the guy in charge and go from there. But then when I read all these stories that come out every 6 weeks from Diana Rossini about how screwed up the Jets are, I'm like, if that's what's getting published, you have to know that what is not getting published, what's not making the cutting room floor, what's not getting past the editors, that's still going to Vrabel. You all know that as well as I do. The people in New York have no idea because they don't know the Vrabel-Diana relationship. But we know that, like, yeah, if this organization is as bad as Diana's putting on paper, imagine what else she knows and what else she's heard. She's telling Vrabel that. He's not taking that job. One texter says, do you want Pete Carroll to be the coach or the GM, though? You talked about Pete Carroll coming in and being Sean Payton. Well, here's the deal with Pete Carroll. And again, the idea of GM is very fluid in the NFL. And what I mean by that is some organizations, the GM is the end-all and be-all. Most organizations, the GM is the end-all, be-all beneath owner. The team president technically is the GM's boss, but more so like a, hey, you know, we're going to pay you this much in a contract extension front, as opposed to, hey, you know, we need to go get Johnny Joe. The GM does that. That's most organizations, but not all of them. In Denver, Sean Payton's in charge. In Kansas City, Andy Reid's in charge, though he's starting to give more to Brent Veach. In New England, Bill Belichick was in charge. Now, Gerard Mayo is not. If you hire Pete Carroll is in charge. And in Seattle, Pete Carroll was in charge working with John Schneider. Then at the end of the day, they decided to put Schneider in charge, and out goes Carroll. So if you hire Pete Carroll, and I just use Pete as an example, I would like Rick Spielman. I would like Mark Dominic, if he could explain what went wrong in Tampa. I would like Thomas Dimitrov, who interviewed for the Jets job, who was the GM in Atlanta, who I know, and Thomas is a smart guy. I want an experienced football person to run the team and report directly to Amy. But if you do it with Pete Carroll, Pete's the coach, and Pete's running the operation. But again, what I'll say when it comes to Pete Carroll is, if you get Pete Carroll, like, you're not going to be as bad as you are now. And Pete's made some mistakes. And Pete's made some trades that, you know, I think would leave a lot of people kind of scratching their head. But that's just how it's going to be. And I'm fine with any of these guys that have real football experience running the team. What I'm not okay with is the status quo, where Brinker and Carthon do interviews on safe spaces during the offseason, tell everybody how great everything's going to be. They spend a bunch of money. They ignore a bunch of red flags. They gaslight everybody. And then when things don't go well, they say the ball didn't bounce their way. That's what I'm not okay with. One texter says, before now, I was okay with Callahan coming back as long as Rand got axed. Now, after his comments yesterday, absolutely, positively, no way. You know, I'm a little torn on the Callahan comments yesterday. I thought the whole Callahan press conference, and not just the, you know, is the team soft? I think that's BS, F that, shove it up your rear end. I think, you know, I could argue either side of it. I could feel either side of it. You know, hey, he's standing up for his guys. On the other side of it, I'm like, you are the coach that told us it was too hot to complete passes in training camp. So it's hard for me now to sit there and say, oh, yeah, tough guy. But the press conference as a whole, that wasn't a good look for Callahan. I thought it was total bull crap. He got up there, talked about he's not worried about the future. He's only worried about the next 3 games. He got up there and he talked about how this doesn't mean he's done with Will Levis. With in NFL lingo, that's what it does mean. You ever had that friend? They keep getting dumped by the same person. But I promise you, she loves me. I don't know, man. The restraining order she took out against you kind of says she doesn't. If you still think Will Levis has a shot of being a Titan, or that the Titans still have any faith in Will Levis, or that Brian Callahan still believes in Will Levis, or that if you believe any of that, that's the same as she still loves me. I don't know, man. I think blocking you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, Twitch, TikTok, I think it's a sign she doesn't. One texter says, how come anytime a Titan player or staffer says something dumb, everyone has to make an excuse and act like there's some sort of hidden meaning? It is hilarious. I have talked about my experience in AP English when I was 18 years old. And we used to read novels about, Virginia Woolf and Shakespeare, and we would always look for all these meanings. The irony of this, or the syntax of that. And I remember, I wasn't the best AP English student in terms of actually doing all the work, but I was pretty good as far as, being an English student was concerned. But I would get frustrated with this idea of I don't know what she's saying something. No, but the illusion here, when it comes to the bullcrap the Titans say, it does feel like every single time it's like, no, no, no. What Jarvis Brownlee meant when he said guys got affected by the cold is not that this team is soft and that these guys got affected by the cold. What he really meant was, when Rand said the ball didn't bounce their way while referencing the way the ball bounced, he's not really talking about the ball. What he's really talking about is, and I do agree, why do we have to act like there's some sort of hidden meaning here? Like it's Shakespeare. When again, it's just them saying something stupid. I do agree with that. Levis said yesterday, I know I have the confidence I can be a great quarterback in this league, whether it's here or somewhere else. Is there a hidden meaning to that, or is Will Levis telling you, I can still do it? By the way, I'll take the under, but okay. But my frustration is equal to this texter when they say something stupid and everyone has to say, oh, no, what they really meant was this. 615-737-1025, TD at the top of the hour for the TD Power Hour. The Preds made a trade. Got a quick thought on that. We'll do that one coming up next. Here on Stillman and Company, tune into 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders will take on Lipscomb at the Murphy Center. Tip-off at 6:30, pregame at 6 o'clock, and coverage is also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com.
these are always tough decisions, especially with good people like Carr. But this is not I know we've peeled off some guys. This is not about peeling off guys. This is about building. This is about building going forward. Our scouts have done a really good job at the draft table. We've acquired lots of draft capital, and we're moving forward. From a standpoint of, it gives us some flexibility from a salary cap standpoint in a couple of the moves that I've made that allow us to be back in free agency if the right guy's there. Picking up a player that might be a better fit from another team that maybe they can't afford. You saw that in the summer with some of those things that St. Louis and Edmonton had last year.
That was Barry Trotz today talking. He'll join us at 5 o'clock. The story last night, the Predators traded Alexander Carrier to the where'd they trade him in Montreal?
Correct.
To Montreal in exchange for Justin Barron, a former first-round pick in 2020, I believe, of the Avalanche, who had been with Montreal, who, whatever. Again, we'll have Barry on at 5 o'clock. We'll ask him about that. Let me say this. There are two thoughts I have here. Number one, I never liked Carrier. I never, ever, ever believed that Carrier was a top 4 NHL defenseman.
Cost you a guarantee.
It did cost me a guarantee, but I was freaking close.
Moved just a year or two off.
Just a half a year. I said he wouldn't be on the Predators in 2024. We are 2 weeks away from 2025, and he's no longer on the Predators. So I never, ever, ever liked Carrier, so I am not shedding a tear over the trade today. I think he's just too small, too inconsistent, doesn't play well in big games.
Well, the problem now is he keeps getting hurt now, too.
And that. I have no idea if this guy's going to be any good or not. I like the money coming back. The cap space that the Predators now have. But I think the other thing, the more important thing, is Barry Trotz is kind of waving the white flag on 2024 and 2025. That he is saying, hey, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And we're going to talk about that when he sits down with us today, saying, what is the reason that it didn't work so you can avoid that pitfall happening again? Clearly, he doesn't think the coach is the problem, or else he would have changed the coach. But I do at least appreciate the fact that the Predators are being realistic. I gave up on the season 2 weeks ago, and I figured they were going to scratch and claw and cry and say, well, no, we still have a 1% chance of making the playoffs. And in reality, they've done the opposite. They've kind of admitted. All right, for whatever reason, this didn't work. Now we go back to the drawing board to figure out what we can do next. And what Barry's doing is he's getting rid of older guys that he can get rid of with some money to open up some more money. My guess is Barry's looking for a center. Whether it's a trade or a free agent at the end of the year, he knows he's going to have to overpay, and he's going to be willing to do it. But you have to have the space in order to do it, or you have to have the draft capital in order to do it. And he made a comment with Pierre Lebrun today at The Athletic, where he talked about, hey, maybe we'll have a top 5 pick this year. That sounds like somebody who is not optimistic about getting back into the playoff race, but somebody who might actually be excited to a certain extent, might be just a little excited about not being good this year. So this to me is going to be like the end of the 2023 season, which wasn't fun, although they did get hot and they almost made the playoffs. But this is going to be more like the winter and spring of 2023, then it's going to be like the winter and spring of 2024, where everybody got excited and everybody had a good time and everybody was ready and and again, I think the Carrier trade kind of signals that. And what did Barry tell us about a month ago? He said, I'm going to give it until Christmas. And everybody said, well, you give it till Christmas, it's going to be too late anyways, and you should just go ahead. Well, he's a man of his word, I guess, because here we are around Christmas time, and now goodbye Carrier, goodbye Scott Wedgwood, and there will be more. And I'm fine with it. Plus, I saw Robbie Stanley said, I think on Twitter, that he thinks Willsby, who had that super sweet goal the other night, that he thinks Willsby has earned the opportunity to play in the NHL on a consistent basis. Look, I'm fine for taking all whatever, 3 guys you got in Milwaukee you think that might one day be good, play them here, and whoever plays well gets to stay, and whoever doesn't goes back. And to me, that's pretty simple. That's where you are. You put them out there and go. The question I do plan to ask Barry is not about why did you trade Carrier? Again, I never liked Carrier. But my question is going to be, so are we just treating this year as a wash? Just saying, hey, we didn't play well. We didn't mesh well. It didn't work out. I made a mistake here or there. But there's no accountability, firing, etc. Or are there people outside of the players playing for their jobs the rest of the way this year? I don't know the answer to that. 615-737-1025. TD is here for the Power Hour. Boy, I bet TD has some thoughts on the soft discussion yesterday. The soft discussion that really kind of came out of nowhere. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Bridgestone Arena, Predators and Penguins tonight, 7 o'clock. Barry Trotz right here in an hour. He will be sitting down with us. But in the meanwhile, TD is with us, Teron Davenport, ESPN, for the TD Power Hour. First of all, TD, thank you for filling in as much as you did over the last couple of days, over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, no, it was fun, man. Jake and I, we enjoyed doing the show. I discovered how wild the chat is on YouTube.
Oh, boy.
I will say this. You're a very influential person.
On the YouTube chat.
These people believe that Rick Spielman is the second coming of Bill Polian, or whoever you want to say is the best GM ever, and they believe in Sam Darnold too, man. Your message has
what though,
gone through loud and clear.
I would love to take all the credit for Sam Darnold, and I'd like to, I'd give myself maybe a little bit of credit. Probably not a lot. I would probably zero, but I'd like to take some credit. But I mean, Sam has played his way.
He's played well. He's played well. Now at $40 million, I'll pass.
No. Well, what's going to happen is it's going to be Sam Darnold's going to go somewhere else at $40 million where he's expected to carry the team, and he's not going to be able to carry the team. And that's just the reality of it. Okay, I want to start on the Brian Callahan comments yesterday. So yesterday was a big press conference going into it because they benched the quarterback. Everybody knew it was going to be a big press conference because they benched the quarterback. Mm-hmm. The theme of the press conference was the benching of the quarterback. And then all of a sudden, Easton Freeze from the top row asked about whether or not the team was soft. And Brian Callahan went off. I wonder kind of your thoughts on A, the question, B, Callahan's response to it, and C, is this something we should be talking about?
Okay, so let's unravel it. So A, the question. I think the question was good. Maybe if there was one thing he could have said a particular, instead of how he asked where he said people. But to Easton's defense, when he said people, he was talking about the story that Mike Herndon wrote, but he was also talking about fans. So he was including everybody. So I'll give him a pass on that one. B, Callahan's response, I frankly like the response, honestly. And I know, like I heard Big Joe saying, oh, well, that's the sign of a man that's going to lose his job. Listen, I'm not going to get into the Dr. Phil and try to analyze everything. But me personally, I know if somebody calls me something that I hate, I'm going to react. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? When you call a team soft, that's an indictment of the coach. And the team generally reflects what the coach is. Mm-hmm. So just the same, like, if you call something associated with me something I don't like, I'm going to react.
I think some of Brian Callahan yesterday was like the manager running out of the dugout. I'm going to defend my guy. I think some of that, too, was I think that's BS, because what you're doing if you call this team soft is you're saying that I'm a soft coach.
Bingo. So I like the response. I don't think there's anything wrong with showing some fire. I think, we got to see a little bit of the Brian. Because remember, I've been telling you all along, like, don't think just because the sunshine pumping and the happy-go-lucky, don't think that he doesn't like. We were talking about this back in January.
Yeah,
you
when
know
he was interviewing
when
for
he
the job.
was interviewing, I was telling you, he's not exactly the so not even use that word. I'm just saying he got fired. You know what I mean? Now, as far as should we be talking about it? Yeah, absolutely, we should be talking about it because this team, they're not winning games, right? They're not winning games. You do have the Jarvis Brownlee Jr. comments, but I will say this. I challenge anybody to call Jarvis Brownlee Jr. soft. You're not going to call that young fella soft.
No, but what Jarvis Brownlee Jr. was essentially calling the other dude soft.
Yeah, right. But
Jarvis Brownlee went to Louisville. He's not soft.
Yeah, that's a prerequisite. If you're not interacting with them, you can't really get a real full feeling for it. And me personally, with the interactions, I can't fully get a feeling for whether or not somebody's soft. I could go by, what I'm kind of seeing, 3-4 days out of the week, but I can't really even. So it just, to me, it's tough to call any of them soft. But also, I think Chris Sanders made a good point. What is the definition of soft?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just throw the term, like, what is soft? Like, where is this team soft? I think they play a physical style of football. Without a doubt, they play a physical. Now, is it Mike Vrabel? Of course not.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's not tough. Mike Vrabel's team was tougher than this team. That doesn't mean this team is soft. I think this team does have toughness in that you watch the way they play. It is a physical style. However, there are some things where I could understand hinting at, okay, yeah, you know what, this might be the way they have responded at times to adversity. They never quit, but they at times will allow things to pile up.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills game, the Lions game, the Commanders game. Things pile up. But in all those games, you know what they continue to do? Fight. So I think you got to give that to them.
Like, I would agree that the biggest problem is not that they're more like, if they are soft, they're more bad than they are soft. I
Right.
know
They're a bad football team, but that doesn't. I would say this: if you go back 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, the 49ers, right? Mike Nolan was the coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and for the first 2 years, he was the coach, and they were losing games. But it was like after every game, the next week you see, oh, so-and-so's on the injury report, so-and-so. That injury report would grow for the opposing team. Same thing when Singletary took over. In fact, Singletary was hard to a fault. They had a center, Jeremy Newberry, right? They used to do this drill called Nutcracker in training camp. And that was just one-on-ones, just me versus you, we're colliding. Newberry hurt his neck, career's over. Hard to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
But every time you played those teams, guarantee you the following week the injury list grew. That's a hard team that didn't win games, but they're hard. They're tough. I think this team, not to that degree of the 49ers back under Singletary, but this team is a tough team, but they're just bad, and they're not winning games.
I will say this. I think that Sunday's game is going to give us a real indication, because Indy's not good. And so if they go to Indy and they play tough and it's a close game, if they go to Indy and they lay down, and we've seen games where teams just lay down.
Yeah, we've seen it.
If that happens, like I keep referencing, I don't know if you remember the Chargers game last year against the Raiders, where the Chargers it was a Thursday night game. It was like 40-0 at halftime, and they fired Brandon Staley as soon as the game was over.
Yeah.
If that happens Sunday, that's a terrible reflection.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
For this team.
I would be surprised if that happens, to be honest with you. But I want to say this, though, because I heard you say some things about reporting. And let's make sure we set the record straight.
Where the gossip is.
Right. Just because you want gossip and you would like to push that out on this show, that doesn't mean that it's there. Kaharski is right. And I'm not talking to Rand. There are other people that I've spoke to. This team is pretty much now. Granted, we know what happened last year.
Sure, and what happened with Mike Mularkey and
right, because at this time last year, we were being told the same thing, and we know what happened with Mike Vrabel. But from what I've gathered, they're going to run this thing back.
Oh no!
And here's the thing. Again, it's just like sunshine. Like, I would love for it to be 90 degrees, 80 degrees out there today, but it's not going to be. And just like I know you want the gossip, but there really isn't. There's no gossip. So I want you to fix what you said. The reporting around the team isn't bad. It's just there's no juice. There isn't anything. If any of us found that, hey, they're not going to bring this crew back, we would gladly report it. But it's just not there. But then the other thing is, you challenge the reporting for here, but you and I both know there are very intimate details of this franchise that I've given you. But you table it when it doesn't match your narrative.
Well, I'm talking about the gossip that comes out with the big market teams.
Well,
the Jets.
I can't help it that Amy Adams Strunk didn't say, hey,
the Patriots
don't draft
the Bears
Jarvis Brownlee because his Madden rating is like, I can't help that.
I know.
That's if it's not there, it's not there.
I also wonder too. Do you know who Connor Hughes is?
Yes, I worked with Connor
Okay.
about.com years ago.
Connor puts out a lot of stuff when it comes to the Jets
Mm-hmm.
that ends up not being true, or it ends up being like, I mean, it could have been true, but like it ended up
But
not.
it's juicy, so it's cool.
That's
though, right?
what I'm talking
But see,
about.
but why
the
not?
behind the
Why
scenes,
not?
where
Why
it's
not?
like a lot of times it feels like the people that cover the team, like it has to be a reported, like I am reporting and I want the gossip.
Have I not given you gossip
You have given me gossip
that you neglected to use in certain situations? Like this whole thing.
I did apologize though. Well, I don't want to say exactly what I apologized about. But
like with Rossini, do you think she was the only one saying that Vrabel was safe?
No, you said that you were hearing the same thing.
There were numerous. I recall Kaharski saying it too. There's news there that we get, and there's reporting that's done. Now, could it be better? Like I take the same approach that a coach does. Yeah, it could always be better, but let's not say it's not there.
So you're hearing the same thing Paul is hearing, that day after Black Monday or whatever, there will be like Amy's not going to do an interview, so it's going to be like a statement.
No. I'm not saying that anybody's speaking. I'm just saying what I've been told is they're not making major changes. A la Rand, a la Chad Brinker, a la Brian Callahan. They're not making major changes.
No!
But let's say they were. Like, where would you want to pivot to? Like, who do you want to be the coach?
So what I would do is I would hire like an experienced former general manager, Dimitrov, Spielman, one of those guys. If it was Pete Carroll, then he would be the coach, but he would be the guy in charge, and then just say, "Here's the team." That's what I would do.
I hear what you're saying.
And I mean, let's say that what happens this year is what happened last year, where Paul's hearing, just this, this is not going to be these major changes. And then bam, everybody's fired. Because with Amy, you never know. So everybody gets fired. If that happens, I think there's going to be a lot of stories that come out from different people, and I'm not just saying it's one person or another person, but when you fire, they'd be firing like 17 people at one time. If you did that, there's going to be like Diana's story. Like, isn't it obvious that this Jets story that came out today is Joe Douglas saying, hey, I tried to trade for Jerry Jeudy, and the owner said no because of the Madden rating. So, and then they probably called the Broncos. The Broncos said, yeah, that's what happened. And so now they wrote it. There's going to be some of that with the Titans. That's going to be like,
I'm going to reach out to Douglas about that and see what he said.
There's going to be some of that with the Titans.
Yeah.
If everybody gets fired, where it's going to be like, well, Rand wanted to trade Derrick Henry, but Amy said this, or, Chad wanted to do this, but Amy did this, or the coach overruled, Vrabel did that. Again, from a gossip standpoint, it's going to be just magical if that happens, but there's going to be a lot of, well, can't blame this person because this person says this didn't happen. It's going to happen with the Titans if it happens. And I'm not going to be able to tell you what's true or what's not. Because I've never met a football coach or GM that got fired. I met one that was like, yeah, I just screwed up. For the most part, it's always, well, we were 3-3, and then the owner got mad because the running back broke his foot, and then we went on the road to Green Bay, and it snowed, and the wide receiver injured his pinky, and that's always every fired coach, every fired GM, it's the same.
Yeah.
And so there will be a lot of that in Titanland, which apparently we'll have to wait a year for. Oh, no. TD over here ruining Christmas. 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour as we always do. The quarterback. They actually made a change at quarterback. What do we make of it? What do we read into it? We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025 again.
that you may be feeling an increased pressure to win, and that that factors into the reasoning as well with the
Well, I think the best way to put it is there's pressure every day for us. I mean, we're every week you're trying to prove yourself. Every year you try to prove yourself. There's no point do you ever feel like this is you interview every day essentially, and that's the NFL. That's coaches, that's players. We're all constantly interviewing for our job, and we're all constantly trying to prove that we can do our job to the level that's required. And so that doesn't change my perspective or my thinking whatsoever. But it's going to remain the same as I'm trying to go prove that I'm capable of the job, and we all are. That's exactly how everybody takes it in the NFL. It's the same in every building across the league, I think, because we're all trying to prove it every week.
Okay, that was Brian Callahan on the quarterback change. TD with us for the TD Power Hour. TD, explain to me if is it as simple as, you know what, never mind, I'm just going to leave it open-ended. Why are they making the quarterback change at this point?
Well, there's multiple things with it. I think A, Levis was not good enough. And then B, this is Brian Callahan, and we said it during the break. You go back and they always drop little pieces of evidence, and one of the things that Callahan said to me, well, not to me, but to the media that was more damning to me than a lot of other things, most other things he said, is he talked about not really knowing, and I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'm not saying that this is what he was saying geared towards and directed towards Levis. I'm taking it that way. Okay. So this isn't Brian Callahan saying it. I would need to be clear with that. But when he said you don't really truly know about a player until you've played with him or coached him, that told me a lot. And I say all that to say, I think coming in, Callahan was like, hey, man, I could fix this. I can make it work. I think in the season opener, he found out that it's going to be a bigger job than I thought.
Yeah.
And then in the second game, he's like, whoa. And then as it continued to happen, there was a point where I feel he was like, all right, man, I'm going to keep working on this, but I don't know. And I think this switch is about showing that everybody, and Jeffrey Simmons, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. spoke extensively about how he wasn't happy that the decision was made, but he was pleased that, hey, it's clear everybody's held accountable. And I think that was a message that he's trying to send to because remember, they're still building culture. Now, one thing you said that I think was spot on, when Simmons had that spout during camp, when he swung, hey, you got to go, brother. Go inside. I'll see you tomorrow, maybe. You know what I mean? Because that's setting the tone early. And I think what Callahan is trying to do now, continuing to do, is set the tone. So you have that. But I feel that this move is to show that, hey, this offense can work. It wasn't working with Levis, but this can work.
Do you think that he's showing that it can work because he has to show that it can work for the owner? Or do you think it's because, like, to me, he talked about, well, we just want to get a spark so we can win this Indy game. Well, look, I know every player wants to win every game. I know they're not tanking. I know. But at the end of the day, this Indy game doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Right.
And he knows that. So I don't really buy that. I'm thinking like, okay, are you desperately trying to win the Indy game because you might be out of a job if you don't win the Indy game? Or is it because you're just tired of Levis? And it's like, I'm just tired of it. I want to move on. I want to, because on one hand, I could see, hey, the owner saying, okay, well, show me that you can coach. Show me that Levis is the problem. Would be by putting Rudolph out there and playing well the last 3 games. But it could be, hey, you're coming back no matter what, play whoever you want, and then he just doesn't want to play Levis anymore because he thinks Levis stinks.
I think both things could be true. To where he could feel assured that he's coming back. But, as a coach, you're a competitor. I don't care if you're coaching Pound League over there, at one of the, parks, the local parks. You're a competitor. You don't want to lose. If you feel that decision A is going to give you a better chance to win than decision B, you're going to make that decision, regardless of whether you feel you're going to be back next year or not. So I think both things are true, honestly.
Yeah, but I think that he probably thought Rudolph gave him a better chance to win in October, and he wasn't playing Rudolph.
Right, because he's still
Because
running through the whole. I want to make.
I got to do
and
what
that's
I was
why-
hired to do.
What did
and
I
try
ask?
to do.
What did I ask him on Wednesday? I said, "Does the fact that you were brought here, how much does the fact that you were brought here to maximize Levis' potential? How much did that play into this decision, being so tough?" He acknowledged it. Look, he's not a dummy. He's not naive. He understands that 3-11 is not good enough. Levis's performance, leading the league in pick sixes and turnovers, it's not good enough. He understands that. And that is a partial indictment on him.
And I wonder, too, how the owner feels about all this, because there's no doubt in my mind that she really believed in Levis. Regardless of, who made the pick or who didn't, when she said to Mike Keith that we have a young quarterback that she was excited about, her son-in-law is buddies with Levis. He's part of the front office staff. She wanted Levis to be the quarterback for more reasons than just, hey, he's on a rookie contract. That's certainly a part of it too. But I know she really thought that, hey, we're getting this coach to maximize our young quarterback that we love so much.
Yeah.
So when they come to her and they're like, yeah, no, I do wonder how she feels about that.
Hey, at the end of the day, business never personal, right?
I know, but could she sit there and think like, no, I gave you this young quarterback. You were supposed to fix him and you didn't.
Jay Gruden was supposed to fix RG3. He didn't, and what was birthed out of it? Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, but Jay Gruden also got fired.
Eventually, yeah. But he didn't get just 1 year. What was there, 3?
I can't even remember. That whole thing was so screwed up with Gruden and the Cousins and McLaughlin and all those.
But
bozos.
that being said, I think it's just, it didn't work.
So
but don't think. I know it didn't work. So at the end of the day, she has to take and say, okay, is it Levis or is it Callahan? In my opinion, it's Levis.
Can I tell you what I think the problem with the Titans has been for the last 3-4 years? There's too much of that going around. Was it Robinson? Was it Vrabel? Was it Vrabel? Was it Rand? Was it Callahan? Was it Levis? Was it? Vrabel is definitely guilty of some serious crimes.
Right. And let me be clear. Let me be clear. When I'm saying is it Levis or is it Callahan, I'm talking about who's going to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
When it comes to the blame, it's everybody. It's even little Taki's fault. I'm just kidding.
Poor
I don't know
guy.
if you know Tak. That's my boy. Taki's
Good man.
Yeah. But no, I think that the blame goes all around. But here's the thing, too, because you mentioned it. Regardless of whether or not Rand traded, like that was a Rand funded or Amy Adams Strunk funded decision.
Or Vrabel.
Decision to get Levis, he's here. Right? Vrabel was gone. If it was Vrabel's decision, guess what you had the chance to do this offseason?
Switch it. Or get somebody better to back up in case. They could have signed.
It didn't happen.
Right. They could have signed a Bridgie backup.
Flacco.
Right.
You know what I
Jameis.
mean? Jameis.
They could have signed a Bridgie backup, and they didn't. They could have brought Tannehill back. Although I think the bridge was kind of burned there with Tannehill.
Yeah. So my thing is, the baby's here now. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? Yeah, I know you know. So what are you going to do? And I think that's really what they have to figure out now. I tell you an interesting thought. And this morning, it kind of really stuck on me. And I said, you know what? Because I had been saying Justin Fields. And it's intriguing, but there's question with that. They need to see what's up with the Saints and Derek Carr. And I'm not saying that's going to be the answer to everything, but I think he could give you serviceable enough play to where you got a couple, 2-3 years. He's proven that he could be a productive quarterback. He's also proven, that he could be kind of bad too. But at the same time, I think he's done more good than bad as a quarterback.
So have you heard about his injury guarantee? So he dove out of bounds, and I think he might have broken his wrist or something.
Yeah.
So he's got $40 million for next year, but only $10 million of it's guaranteed. but it all is guaranteed if he can't pass a physical in March. And so there's questions as to whether or not he'll be able to pass the physical and whether or not the money will be guaranteed.
Ooh.
So that's kind of
that's something to
complicated.
figure out. Yeah, that's something to figure out. But the other thing, and was it Nick Suss or Terry? It was one of the two, Terry McCormick. We were standing outside the bubble this morning, and they were like, the most ideal thing would be for the Rams to want to move on from Stafford. Then you bring Stafford in here, and again, not the answer to everything, but I think you could win games with Stafford. Like this team with Stafford or Derek Carr, I think they would be, better than 3-11.
What did you think about Fowler throwing Aaron Rodgers out there in his piece at ESPN? Because Fowler definitely has a hook in the organization. I don't know where. I think it might be Callahan, but I'm not sure. But
Fowler is very, okay. I just, Teron, shut up. Okay, I'll be quiet. Look, Aaron Rodgers did buy property in Nashville, right?
Hey, it was reported here. 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour as we always do. Stillman and Company. TD's with us. 1025 The Game.
Beyond Will, the entire team has been doing consistent to that standard for
Yeah.
this season. What is the standard you hope to see in the final 3 games and a definition of what this team ends as?
Yeah, I think we're looking for down to down execution, looking for series to series, to where you can see the consistent play that allows us to put ourselves in position to win, and there's inconsistencies with turnovers, there's inconsistencies with the red zone offense and defense. And so those are all the things we're trying to tighten up, and play a better brand of football over the last 3 weeks against 3 divisional teams. And again, the divisional games matter and are things that we're trying to improve at a rapid rate. And the hope is that we can see that improvement over the course of the last 3 games.
As Brian Callahan, TD's with us for the TD Power Hour. I'm going to put you on the hot seat, TD.
Let's have it.
Okay. You get a phone call. Phone comes up. Do you answer numbers that you don't know when you get a call?
No.
So I never answer. If I don't have your number, like, you better leave a voicemail or text, because
It depends on the area code.
Okay. It's a Houston, Texas area code.
Yeah, I ain't answering that.
And then they leave a voicemail. TD, this is Amy Adams Strunk. Will you give me a call back when you get a chance?
Oh, boy.
And she says, Teron, I value your opinion. I listen to you on the radio. I read you at ESPN. What do you think I should do at the end of the year with Chad Brinker, Rand Carthon, and Brian Callahan? Should I bring them all back? Should I see how the rest of the year goes? Should I bring 1 back but not 2? Should I bring 2 back but not 1? What should I do, TD?
I would say, well, my suggestion.
Name me GM.
Yeah, right. My suggestion would be to understand that it hasn't been good enough to this point, but see how next year goes. If next year doesn't start off well, you flush the toilet and you go out and you make some significant moves in 26 so that you'll have a foundation starting to be laid when you move in 2027. But speaking of foundation, one thing you got to remember is most things that are built quickly crumble quickly. So give what's going on now, give that concrete a chance to be poured and to settle and to move on from these 3 guys at this point right now. I don't think it would be good. And we know you don't want to pay 3 people, 3 coaches to do 1 coach's job, or 3 GMs to do 1 GM's job if you were to move on. So that's something else to consider.
Here's what bothers me. If they come back next year, I mean, I really don't see an answer to the quarterback solution that's not Sam Darnold. And I'm not the biggest supporter of Sam Darnold carrying a team. I think Sam Darnold can be a good quarterback on a good team. I don't think that Sam Darnold can be a good quarterback on a bad team. And this is a bad team. So if they don't sign Sam Darnold, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I think Darnold is getting tagged in Minnesota. I think Sanders and Ward will be off the board before they pick.
Agreed.
Which means I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. But what I do worry about is if they were to draft Jalen Milroe, or if they were to sign another quarterback or something like that, unless it's a 1-year deal, I fear that they would be setting up the next guys with a quarterback situation, contract, or draft pick on their hands, that then we just start to cycle over again where, okay, well, now these guys come in because we think we can coach up Jalen Milroe, and they're really lying about it. They're just saying whatever to get the job. And then, well, they didn't draft Jalen Milroe. And I'm like, I think that right now is the time where if you do clean house, you get to start over at quarterback too.
You can start over at quarterback without starting over at head coach.
I know, but then when you fire this guy, it's the same as, Robinson didn't draft Mariota, and Malarkey didn't draft Mariota, and then these guys didn't draft the Levis, and then it's, and I'm just tired of that.
I think you got to be careful to not make change just to make change, though. And I think that's important. I think if you could identify a QB and coach tandem that works, it doesn't always have to be they started at the same time. So for me, that's not as big of an issue. I think the other thing that you have to see is if they were to fire Callahan now, it doesn't set a good precedent, right? It doesn't. Firing a coach after 1 year, it doesn't set a good tone for the next coaches that are going to be interviewing. You're always going to have coaches interview. Like Thomas Brown is going to interview because, he's not going to have a lot of options. But I think that instability that would be shown by making a fire after 1 year, I think that would kind of make some of your Pete Carrolls, say, hey, they got a mess going on over there.
I
I'm
think
not
Pete will
touching
take
it.
any interview he gets.
I would be surprised. I don't know anything about his situation, so I can't say.
I mean, the thing with me was I didn't think that the Texans would be able to fulfill the Rooney Rule requirements after they fired Culley and Lovey in back-to-back years. And Stephen A. went on First Take and said black coaches need not apply for the Houston Texans, and they hired D'Amico Ryans.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's possible, and I know D'Amico played there, but if that's possible, that means none of these guys care about, well, he only got 1 year, and well, they only gave him 2 years. Well, that's a mess.
I wouldn't point to the D'Amico Ryan situation because he knows that situation. He knows that.
I know, but San Francisco went through the same thing, and they ended up with Shanahan.
Well,
Denver got Sean Payton.
San Francisco's situation was much different. Mike Tomsula. So let me tell you about that. Mike Tomsula was the mole. He was feeding Trent Baalke any bit of negativity that he could about Jim Harbaugh. It got to a point where egos weren't matching. Baalke wanted the credit. Harbaugh wanted the credit.
God, where have I seen that?
Yeah. So they couldn't coexist. Jed York let Baalke make the decision.
Sure.
Rather than getting rid of Baalke and keeping Harbaugh. So that situation was different because Baalke hiring Tomsula was kind of like a favor. But you also look at that organization, like it was really bad. Not to say that this is great, what we're experiencing now, but it was really, really bad. And Tomsula was just not going to have a future as a coach. It just wasn't going to happen.
Sure.
So it was different.
But then they brought in Chip Kelly.
And
they fired him after 1 year. And then they made Shanahan the coach.
Yeah.
And Denver fired Hackett, who was a total doofus. And they have landed on their feet with Peyton. I'm just saying, like.
Have you heard this? Yeah. All right. Well, because I don't want to turn this into a 49.
Yeah.
But trust me, there were things with
Plus,
Chip
we got to
Kelly
hit your phones next, and we'll do it. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company TD Power Hour. TD is with us. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go right to the question?
Just a quick thought. I got to salute the Predators. That spread that they got down, and this is the second time I've gone downstairs and got that food is on point.
You hit the pregame spread?
You saw the plate that came up.
Yeah, that used to be something.
And to have the they're gone. The cup is gone. To have the Swedish fish too, man. Shout out to them.
I've been a big fan of the Predator spread for a long, long time. One text says, TD, is Joe Douglas a bad general manager or the victim of the Jets and Aaron Rodgers? His picks of Hall, Gardner, Wilson, and Williams were all solid.
Yeah, he made some good picks, but I mean, to trade for Hassan Reddick, not smart. You know, he's had, I don't want to go back and recount all the mistakes, but he's made his share of mistakes. Joe Douglas, I think, is a solid GM, though. I know he has a strong scouting background. We used to always talk about small school gems, and he definitely has put. You know, he's the one that discovered Justin Tucker. He's the reason why the Ravens drafted Joe Flacco. So, you know, those are two big-time wins for him.
One texter says, TD, what do you think about Paul Kaharski's article where he compared the roster before Rand Carthon got here and since he has been here and the additions he's made, saying that it might be slightly better or slightly worse or might be significantly worse?
Yeah, I didn't read the story, so I can't really comment on that one. I think the roster is slightly worse. But it's interesting what an impact player like a Derrick Henry or what a competent quarterback like Ryan Tannehill could do for a roster.
One texter says, TD, how certain do you feel about the sourcing that everybody will be back this upcoming season?
I'm going to let you answer that, Jared. And just you answer that because of the fact that I came on the air and said it. How do I feel about that?
I would say this. I don't think you heard it from Amy, which would be, you know, if you heard it from Amy, it would be, you know, sources tell ESPN that the Titans are. So I wonder, okay, how much of it with Amy, like, how much of it is like Amy's sending signals, but she's not telling people, or she could pull the rabbit out of the hat like she did last year, or
I will say this, and this is what I thought that you would say. The fact that I said it means I feel strongly about it, because I have to be almost certain before I put my name on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's exactly why, and we talked, well, no, I didn't talk to you about it. That's exactly why my name isn't on the QB switch, because I couldn't confirm it a couple times before reporting. You know, I'm not going to put my name on something that I'm not certain of.
Where do you think the hook is, by the way, with Fowler and the organization? Do you think it's Callahan?
I don't think it's in the organization, frankly.
Really?
I think it's agent driven.
One texter says, TD, what do you think matters over the last 3 games?
That they compete. Winning is definitely the most important thing, but they have to compete. As you said, this game coming up, like Callahan, that rant and everything, it was great. I appreciated it, but he put the players on task. Now they better go out and they better play a tough. Funny I say that. They better play, you know, like a physical, hard football game and not show any signs of laying down. Like, they got to go out there and really they need to win.
Adam in Portland is up next here on the program. Oh, Adam not in Portland. Got it. Adam is up next. Adam, you're on with TD. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes,
go.
sir.
Hey, wanted to get your thoughts on Manning out of Texas. I know, you know, gosh, he's not playing too much now. I don't know how much or how many years in Texas he'll have. But what about just throwing in the towel next year and then next year after that and try and line up and get Manning? Just want to get your thoughts on that thing.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Adam.
I mean, that's a very long down the line type thing. I don't think Callahan could afford to throw in the towel.
I don't think those guys will have
and
jobs.
Rand can't. Because, look, I'll say it. If they don't get those first 3 to 4 games, like if they don't start the first quarter of the season, well, they're going to be gone. And that's the pressure that they put on themselves. So, yeah, it's great to look at that, but that's too far down the line. They can't afford. They got to worry about now.
If everybody comes back, this is going to be a really weird offseason because there's going to be 30% of the fan base that did you hear me talk about Poo Johnson yesterday?
Mm-mm.
So I have a theory that if you took 10 Titan fans, if the Titans signed Poo Johnson to play quarterback, they would say, oh, no, Jared, you don't understand. He was so good at we're in state. He was awesome. He was a Poo Johnson is the guy, Jared. 3 out of 10. And so 3 out of 10 will say whatever the Titans do is the right thing. No matter what, it's the best that way. Well, I think there's going to be 3 out of 10 that are so opposed to anything that they hear out of Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, or Chad Brinker's mouth that it's going to be fighting for that Final Four. And I think that Final Four is going to be kind of in the middle of no man's land there, and it's going to be ugly, like a Titan fan civil war if they bring everybody back. Because they'll sign a player, and the Poo Johnson crowd will be like, oh, yes! And then the anti-crowd will say, I mean, well, you all did that last year. And it's just going to be, that's going to be crazy.
It's going to be really crazy. But it's okay. It is what it is.
One text says, TD, who do you think is the most logical option to be the quarterback next year for the Titans?
Ooh. That's available now, or that? All right. Well, I think the most logical one to me is Derek Carr. Like, that makes the most sense to me. And that's not saying, hey, Derek Carr, Super Bowl. It just makes the most sense for them to be a competitive team.
It's like Derek Carr's 7 wins. It's probably more than Derek Carr's Super Bowl, but it's still woof. Barry Trotz joins us next. TD, thanks for stopping by. As always, Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
All right, appreciate it.
Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Barry Trotz normally joins us on Tuesday, joining us today on a Thursday, presented by Pourvu. Barry, good to see you. How are you?
Good. Merry Christmas to you.
Absolutely. So I want to start right here with kind of the big news. Alexander Carrier traded yesterday. Chase actually texted me. He said they just traded Carrier. And I said to him, I never liked Carrier. And I will be completely honest with you. I never liked Carrier. I always thought he was too small. And I always thought he was never really a true top 4 defenseman. And I kind of knew when you re-signed him this offseason, like, well, he and Lazan had a good thing going, but that kind of fell apart this year. And I really don't believe that he's a top 4 pair defenseman. I have no idea about this guy you got for him. I don't even know if the trade was about the guy you got for him. But I want to start with this, which is, was that move Barry Trotz yesterday waving the flag saying the 2024-2025 season is probably lost?
Absolutely not. I'm when I started this, the plan doesn't really change. I've actually 2 players, and I've always been very honest with the fans in Nashville and yourself. Is there's 2 players that we tried to acquire last year. One was Justin Barron, and one was Juice Noonan, and we weren't able to get them last year, but we did get them this year. And
were there any other players? Because I will say I read that exact thing that you just told me in The Athletic today, and I thought, well, you just said that about the last guy. You know, you acquired the goalie. You said, hey, I tried to get him last year. And then you said in The Athletic what you just said to me, which is you said, hey, I tried to get Justin Barron last year.
I did.
Okay, so this isn't like every time you trade for someone, you're going to say, I tried to get him last year.
No, absolutely not. But you do have a pattern. Once I lock on to someone, or our organization locks onto someone, I will pursue it. And sometimes timing is a good example. We look back at I made a trade before the draft to get Andrew Gibson, who's going to be in the World Junior team with Molendyk, and they might be a pair or top pair at the World Juniors for Canada. So, you know, our scouts identified him. We wanted to draft him. We didn't have the ability to draft him because we didn't have that pick, but we stayed on him, and we're able to acquire him. Justin Barron is, I think, a little bit of an underutilized defenseman. He's a lot bigger than Carr. He skates very well. He was getting sort of squeezed out with Montreal, has a glut of good young defensemen, and he was getting squeezed out, quite frankly, and I think there's a lot more there. He's 5 years younger than Carr, and he's a little bit bigger. But I'd say this, Carr is one of my favorites. This business can be brutal because you affect people's families, you get relationships with players. You know what kind of good people they are, all that. But my job is to make this team better now and in the future. And there's no white flag going up. This is about trying to get better. What it does, though, is allow us. We got a player that we think can be better, and we've done a great job with our young defensemen in our organization for years. And this is a play on that. We get some salary cap relief, which allow us to go get someone else if the right person is there, or to re-sign people that are coming up in the future. So this is just identifying a piece that can make us better in the future. And, you know, Alex is really good. I think if you look at guys like Adam Wilsby, Blankenberg, Stashny, who's now playing extremely well in Milwaukee, and Delgazzo, and then you got Gravel came up. We feel that we have enough on defense. And, you know, the guys that have come in during the absence of Carr and Lazan and Yossi, we felt that the gap wasn't that much. And so it's time to move on. They're tough decisions. Someone asked me, you know, did you regret signing Carr? Not one bit. I know what the market was last year and what the price was for defensemen. So we made sure that, you know, Carr wanted to go to free agency. He checked everything out, and he ended up coming back. But we tried to re-sign him last year. That was never, you know, something that we weren't going to do. And, you know, but the timing was right. And I was very fortunate with a good person like Carr when the deal happened that he was actually going back home. And
Would you have made this trade last year? So at the deadline last year, we talked a lot about Carrier because you were trying to get a deal done with him. And you had said, well, maybe he'll be our own rental where we'll keep him and, for the playoff run. If Montreal had said, we'll give you Justin Barron, because you said that you really liked Justin Barron last year. If Montreal had made you that offering last year when you were looking like you were going to have a playoff team, would you have made that move then?
Yes.
That's how much you like Justin Barron.
Yeah.
Okay. That at least is a little telling. I do have a theory about you, about what you're about to do. You won't say it, but I do feel like we usually get the message. I think you're cutting fat because I think you think this team is one big NHL core piece away from really being what you want them to be next season. And you think you'll have the opportunity to either trade for that with all of your young assets or sign it in free agency. That's why Wedgwood's not here. That's why Fabro's not here. That's why Carrier's not here. There might be somebody else. Sissons might not be here because he's got a little bit of money, but movable money. There may be a guy or two also that's not here. And then that ends up, who knows about the Johansson money? Now all of a sudden, Barry's got $8 million. And here's the trade for so-and-so. That's what I think's happening. Your thoughts?
My thoughts. That's a good a really good observation.
Is there a guy right now that you've circled that you're like, him?
No, I'll be honest on that. I haven't circled the guy, but I am looking for a guy or two. Like I said, there's no white flag. If I can get someone who's going to be a long-term fill for what we're trying to do, I will go and do it. If not, everybody I got asked today, are you done? And I'm like, I can't answer that. I can't answer that, but I think it'll be a little quiet for a while. It's been unsettling for a little bit. Not only we have the freeze starting at midnight for a week or so it will be quiet. But I'm always looking. I have to. That's my job, to try to make this team better. It's about winning. I don't believe in the tank and giving up. That's a bad message. To me, I hate when people say you give up on stuff.
Sure, but you talked today in The Athletic about having a top 5 pick, and there's only one way you get a top 5 pick.
But you look at it, I looked at it like Jersey last year. Everybody was talking about, them being a top pick. I said, we're in a unique situation. We've got some good older players that have lots of game left. We've got a glut of young kids coming. And if the way our season goes, I don't know how many injuries we could have. I don't know how the season's going to play out. But there's no tank, but we could be in this where we are right now. We could be a top 5 pick if the season ended today. That's fact. That's reality. And that could be really unique. You got a team that has a lot of prospects coming. You've got a team that has some really good star power in it, and you end up with a high pick. That's rare. And
so it happened in the WNBA one time. Los Angeles, I think this is right. Los Angeles had Lisa Leslie, who was, I think she's like the first woman to ever dunk the ball. And so she got pregnant. And, like when you get pregnant in the WNBA, like you're out for the season.
Yeah.
Not something that you deal with. But because she was out, they were bad that year, and they got Candace Parker. So they had Candace Parker and Lisa Leslie on the team at the same time, and then they won the championship the next year. I do think there is a reality where the Predators have the core group that they have now. This year ends up, for whatever reason, which is what I really want to get into, is figuring out the whatever reason. For whatever reason, it doesn't work this year. You get the high pick, so you get to draft that forward that you've never had, and then next year you pick up where you thought you were going to be at the beginning of this year.
That would be a great scenario. I don't know how it's going to
It would
play
involve
out.
a lot of losing, though, between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's not where I'm at. That's definitely not where I'm at. I always talked about culture trumps everything. You know that with me. Sure. And so I don't want to allow that. I don't want it to permeate, be in our locker room. I don't want that. but sometimes the situations or luck or injuries or some stuff's out of your control. So for me to make that prediction right now, I can't, but I can guarantee you this, that I don't want the culture to slip. I want it, we've gone through some hard times. We're going to be better for it because we've gone through it, because you don't want it. You hate losing. You hate where you are. And so you got to change it. And you look at the situations, we're a destination place for free agency. New York Rangers are. They just traded the second pick overall, Kako to Seattle last night, but they won the lottery, and then 2 years in a row basically got the first and second pick, and they never went rock bottom, and then they were able to get Panarin, and their rebuild was like a year.
Sure. And
so I feel there's a lot of similarities and things, but I can't guarantee that. There's so many good teams in the league right now. And there's not much to separate us. I think there's some 6 or 7 teams that are deeper than everybody else and have all the star power, and they're in that window. And then there's a group of teams of 15 or 16 that are got good teams, but they may not have enough star power. So everybody's lumped in that mushy middle, but the mushy middle is getting bigger and wider. And you look at a team like that's going through a real tough time right now is Buffalo. They've been in a rebuild for 12, 13 years. And I thought this year would be the year that they would take a step, and maybe they still will. And I hope so, because that's such a great market. Buffalo people are so passionate and all that. So
I wouldn't mind if they traded a center to the Predators.
Yeah, but they've acquired a lot of top talent. I mean, I talk to Kevin Adams all the time about flipping some duplicate pieces that we have with them, and we haven't been able to do a deal or anything like that. But at the same time, I understand he's got some really good pieces.
Do any of those conversations with Kevin Adams have to do with Dylan Cousins? Can I ask you that directly? I don't think I can.
I go right through his roster, especially at the center ice position. So yeah, I think every team. We probably have 31 other general managers that throw that ask that question. So I wouldn't be the only one. So
philosophically speaking, if I was Kevin Adams, and if I had a centerman that was a young, you talk about former top pick and how you can get these guys and might be on the trade block, might not be on the trade block. How painful would a trade like that be for you to acquire a player like that with the assets that you'd have to give up?
I don't even, the player might not even be, that's hard for me to answer because the player is not out there available. But when you trade top players, you have to give up something.
Sure.
All the time. So the one thing that I'm finding out in this business, everybody loves their players more than the other team. Like I love our players more and have a higher value on our players than, another team's general manager. They look at it, they go, well, we got a better player. It seems like no one wants your players and I don't want their players and vice versa. It's just, you've invested so much into your own players that there is a natural bump up because you don't know till you know, and or you don't know till you own it. I use that term. So I wouldn't know right now, but I know when I was dealing with our own player in Askarov when he was a natural predator. I mean, my ask was high, and everybody's fighting against that. Everybody, you talk about where their draft value is. It's always in the eye of the beholder. How much do you want to pay for that luxury? And I've had different general managers, and if you really like the player, and this is, Lou Lamoriello, he's been in the league a long time, and one thing that I remember Lou, and he's so wise, is he said, if you really love the player, it's okay to overpay for him a little bit because you believe in that player, you believe in that piece. That you don't have to win the deal. Like I believe some managers in the league want to, win the deal by a big margin because it's an ego thing. But you know, if you really like the player, I think you can overpay because you're getting what you want, and there's a price to pay. It's no different than you want the shiny car, you want the Mercedes, or you want the
Well, this is what I always tell
BMW.
people about free agency in sports, and trade would be, what you're paying is a little different because you're paying the assets when it's a trade as opposed to free agency where you're just paying the money. But this is what I feel about free agency in sports, and I think it's the same as the housing market. If I want a house, then the market dictates what I pay. If I want your house, then I have to overpay.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I want a forward on the market and there's 4 forwards on the market, well, I can say, well, I think the market's going to say that you're worth $7 million because one guy might be worth 8 to somebody else, but one of these 4 guys is going to be $7 million. But if you want that forward, you have to pay $9 million to make sure that you get him, because somebody else might offer 8 and you're offering 8. Now it's like, well, but their school district is better than your school district. So you have to overpay for a specific thing if you want it.
Yeah. Like they say, location, location, location. That's the key to the housing market, right?
Sure.
And if you want that location, you're going to pay premium for it. And it's no different than a free agent.
To that, when you look back at this offseason, and I know you weren't making any empty promises during the offseason when you signed Stamkos, Marcia Saucier. It wasn't like you held a press conference and said, we're going to go win the cup this year. In fact, I think it was very quickly like, hey, this is all fantasy hockey, and tried as much as you could. Is there anything that you look back on and you say, you know what? That was my first kind of big swing through free agency as a general manager on my own. Now I know. Is there something that you took from that experience that you look back on and maybe not regret that you didn't know, but now you know it for the future?
Yes.
And what would that be?
I would like to keep that to myself a little bit. But the experience of going through that process, I don't regret any of my signings. I'll put that out there. I don't regret any of those. I regret a little bit of the process, and sometimes a little bit of patience here and there, because certain things, timing's everything. As a general manager, things, just as you say, I'm just going to get this. Then someone will come out the door after you sign the paperwork. Someone will come over and go, you know what? Hey, I was thinking about moving this piece. Are you interested? And you might go, oh, I like that piece, and maybe I would have rearranged it. But you can't really look back anymore. That's what I'm finding out, is that you can't.
Can I tell you my biggest criticism of your free agency?
Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
talking to somebody about this today.
Big boy.
And it reminds me, I used to work with Floyd. And Floyd used to always tell us, hey, you never make a decision until you have to, which was kind of his GM philosophy. Now, the NFL had a franchise tag, so that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But that's always kind of stuck with me. The one thing that I look at and I'm like, I think the process could have been a little bit better was the goalie. I felt as if you looked at Wedgwood or at the backup goalie position. I think you wanted to have Saros and Lankinen. You offered Lankinen a contract. Lankinen turned it down because Lankinen wanted to play more. And Lankinen probably deserved to play more because Lankinen is pretty good, and he's proven that this year. But Lankinen went out there looking for an opportunity that didn't exist at the time. But you, knowing that Lankinen was looking for that opportunity, said, well, I got to get a backup goalie in here. So you went out and got Wedgwood to make sure it was done. Whereas if you had waited on backup goalie, you may have Kevin Lankinen back, or, you would have figured out backup goalie would have been fine, even if you hadn't jumped out right there for backup goalie.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's close. I would love to have Lanks. And if someone asked, we offered Kevin Lankinen a really substantial contract. It was only for 1 year. He said he felt that he would he felt he was going to be a number one somewhere else. And he went the whole summer without anything. Yeah, I think he was very fortunate that Demko got hurt, or maybe he had inside information, but he ended up barely league minimum, and he's a better goaltender than that. So if you leave it up to chance, this is one thing in this business, you leave it up to chance, and then all of a sudden there's no seats left. And
sure.
So I wanted to make sure that we had a backup goalie, number one. And two, I knew with the Askarov situation, I wanted a goalie that Askarov situation could go one way or the other. I wanted to have a backup plan, but I also wanted a backup goalie that I knew I could move if things fell in place with Askarov.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what I'm saying. Sometimes timing it doesn't match up to what you want, and that's what I'm learning as a general manager. That you can have all the plans in the world, but the timing doesn't always match your plan. And so when you do something, you're thinking about the immediate, you're thinking about the future, and you're thinking about your flexibility on all these situations. So that's what I'm learning, and then I'm learning it on the fly.
I saw Matt Duchene did a podcast, and he talked about how devastated he was when he got bought out by the team. Is that something you think about at all, or second guess the idea of letting Duchene out of here? Right now goals are kind of a premium that you're not getting, and I think he hits in the lineup a little bit differently than where he was supposed to hit here.
Yeah, I think where he's placed right now, it's a great spot for Matt. I think that got him the urgency or the reset in his game. I don't look back on that and at all. I did hear that, and it was fairly accurate. One or two things that I did call him back and say, hey, we're not we're going to go through with the buyout. I didn't hear that in the podcast, but I'm pretty sure
Did you really think about it though? Like, I feel like when you had made the decision that you were going to buy him out, you probably had done a lot of thinking about that before that.
Absolutely.
So then when it was like, well, they said they were going to think about it again. Did you really think about it again? Or was it like, oh yeah, we'll think about it?
No, we discussed it. We discussed it as a group. There's no question. I don't leave those game-changing type decisions to lightly. So it wasn't the wink, wink. We had a long, serious talk about it because that was a big decision, and I don't take that lightly.
When it comes to the coach, it's a weekly conversation here, but you guys have been winning some games now. So, by the way, I would say the Predators 2-1 in the life of Jack Stillman. But more importantly, I am getting the feeling that Andrew Burnett, you keep saying, is part of the solution. But if this team ends up with a top pick, it's hard for me to envision the coach coming back for next year unless you really think that, hey, even if the rest of this season is still tough, I still am all in on the coach. I still believe he's part of the solution and not the problem. Is the rest of the season going to be what determines what you do with the coach? Or is it almost like, hey, everybody failed this year. We're all going to pick it up next year from the start and try to get off to a better start and do that with Andrew Burnett in tow? It's kind of an unfair question.
It is a very unfair question. I don't think I can answer that. I don't think anybody can answer that. I think what I have to do is assess the whole year, assess where we are. I've talked to the coaches, teach and preach, get us better, get us individually better, collectively better, get us playing good hockey all the time. And, we've been in games. We haven't had, that rebuild where we are. We haven't had lots of those, 10-1 beatings that some of the rebuild teams have had in the past. We could have one tonight. I don't know, but we've been in the games 12. I think we're number 2 in empty net goals. That means that we're pulling our goalie because we're right there. We're a goal behind. We haven't hit offensively. We've been stuck on sort of 2 goals for a good part of the season. Our expected goals is unexplainable. We're minus 40. Those 3-2 losses become extra points, or 3-2 or 4-3 wins, whatever. And that's been the difficult part of this year.
I guess what I'm asking is, if things don't miraculously change and this team makes the playoffs and has a St. Louis Blues kind of season, the 2019 Blues, does there have to be a fall guy for why this year didn't work out?
No, I don't think so. I think you have to assess everything at full value. I don't think look at last year in New Jersey. They had an off year. Part of it was goaltending. They look like a terrific team this year. They look like they have a chance to win the cup. I have a great relation, obviously, with Fitzy, who's their first captain. I have a great relationship. He said everything went wrong last year with them, and they had an off year, but there was no fall guy. They just recognized they had an off year, and they were okay. We a tweak here, an adjustment here, a pickup here, a change here, and they did that, and they're having a hell of a season. But they didn't really. They sort of assessed the whole year, and then they tweaked it at the end of the year.
So, you guys lost your 8th game in a row last Tuesday. My son was born on Wednesday. You won Thursday.
Congrats.
I thought you guys were going to win on Saturday. You didn't. You won Tuesday. I have a feeling that might be what turns the season around.
Well, perfect. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I am banking on it.
What is the name of the child?
Jackson Reese. Named him after Floyd.
Oh.
But so we call him Jack. Actually, he's got his Preds gear on today. He's very, very excited about that. Barry, thanks for stopping by. As always,
Anytime.
have a very, very Merry Christmas. And we will see you when we see you, maybe at the end of this year, maybe the new year. I'm not totally sure about the scheduling on that, but it's always good to see you.
I will be at the World Juniors at the end of the year. So I will probably see you in the new year if I don't see you before that.
Go find the good players.
All right.
Barry Trotz, presented by Port Vu, Stillman and Company. 102.5 The Game. Just wrapped up with Barry Trotz here on the program. Neil texted in, by the way, our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, Ian, and said that I was cutting Barry Trotz off too much. Was I cutting him off too much?
More than usual.
Well, sometimes, Barry kind of gets a little long-winded down the path, and we got questions. We got to. So Barry says he's not waving the white flag on the season. He'll never do it. He'll never tank. He'll never any of that stuff. But he also said that, hey, they got to be realistic about where they are. And the most revealing answer I thought that he gave, there were two. One was I asked him about this Justin Barron. Because, again, Trotz said, hey, this was a guy I wanted to acquire last year. And when I read him saying that to Pierre Lebrun in The Athletic, I said to myself, he said that about the goalie they acquired from Colorado when they traded Wedgwood. And I'm like, is this about to be Rand Carthon's fake GMs that are texting him every time he makes a pick? I'm like, is this going to be Barry's going to say, I wanted him last year? But he said no. He said there were two players I wanted. Those were the two. If Barry says that again, so help me. But he said that's who he wanted and said he would have made the same deal last year for this defenseman. We'll see if he's any good. I have no idea. The second thing is I asked him a very unfair question about, if this team stinks, are you going to fire the coach at the end of the year? Well, that's unfair. And then I said, okay, if this season doesn't go miraculously in the other direction, and I hope it does, but if it doesn't, does there have to be a fall guy for the season? Does there have to be somebody at the end of the year who has to take the fall? He said no. So those were kind of my two big takeaways there. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Coming up next, I heard a little bit about this, then I saw it with my own eyes, and I'm shocked. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
Great opportunity this week, playing a big game against a great opponent. A lot of work's gone on to get to this point. Guys started back in January, staff and players together, and they've earned the right to play in a game like this. Great opponent, great venue. You look at Ohio State defensively, they lead almost every category in the country. And offensively, got elite players on that side of the ball, and they tie it together well with special teams. So huge challenge for us, but one we're really excited about. And preparation's been good. We got to continue that this week and get ready to go play our best football when we get up to Columbus. So great opportunity.
And you hear that? We got a great opportunity on Saturday night. Get out there and play our ball game our way.
All right.
All right, Josh Heupel, Tennessee, Ohio State, Saturday night, ABC. I think it's ESPN because aren't all the playoff games on ESPN? It's the playoff. Get excited. You know who's not excited about Saturday night's playoff game? Ohio State fans. So I had heard last week the Ohio State athletic director came out, and I think this was when I was on paternity leave or whatever the hell you want to call it. But the Ohio State AD came out and said, please do not sell your tickets to Tennessee fans. And I just kind of rolled my eyes and said, whatever. And then I saw all the Tennessee fans posting about going to the game on Saturday in Columbus. So I went to StubHub myself to look at what the tickets were going for on StubHub. And again, there's all these other sites as well, whatever. So I decided to look to see what the ticket prices were. Ian, want to go to the game on Saturday?
Sure.
If we want to sit in the crappiest seats on StubHub, it'll cost us $92
a piece
to go to the game.
And then a football stadium of a hundo, that's way up there.
Yeah, but $92?
That's what I mean. You're talking, you'll be up in the clouds.
$92? Like, that's cheap. Like, are you kidding me? Ian, you want to sit, let's sit in the club level, right? No. We'll wait for the club level. Let's sit on the UT sideline at the 30-yard line.
UT sideline, 30-yard line. Okay.
$250 a piece.
It's a little steep.
No,
if it was the
cheap.
If it was the championship game, that'd be one thing.
No, it's the playoff. It's Ohio State, Tennessee.
Yeah, I guess.
$250 to sit lower level, 10 rows up off the 30-yard line.
For one
that
ticket
is
plus
massively
fees?
cheap. Oh my God.
Okay.
It's the playoff. If a Louisville, because I was texting Chad Withrow about this today, if a Louisville was playing in the college football playoff, if they were hosting the game in Louisville at what used to be Papa John's, now it's F&M, L&M, whatever stadium.
You got no problem ponying up?
No, I'm telling you, it would be, the get-in price would be $500.
Gotcha.
Like, just to get in, the worst seat would be $500 for Louisville UT in a playoff game. I talked to a buddy of mine who is a diehard Ohio State fan. And I said, what is the deal with these seats? Because again, think about how expensive Predators playoff tickets were when they were hot. Like $250 to sit lower level for Tennessee, Ohio State, a Saturday night playoff game. And I asked my buddy who's an Ohio State fan, I said, what is the freaking deal here? And he said, Ohio State fans just don't give a darn. He was like, they don't care about the playoff because they lost to Michigan. They don't care because they don't like Ryan Day. And they just don't, they're out. And I said, really? Because they lost to Michigan? And I interviewed a guy on Sirius a couple weeks ago who told me, he was like, you know what's crazy? He said, I believe that there are people in Ohio that would rather beat Michigan than win the national title if they lose to Michigan. And I guess that I am telling you right now, Tennessee fans, what's hilarious to me is it's not like Tennessee fans are like, screw the playoff, we lost to Georgia, so let's not go. I think it's going to be a massive influx of Tennessee fans on Saturday night. They will travel and they will take pride in taking over that stadium. And Ohio State fans are so out on Ryan Day and so mad about the Michigan game that they will let them. I mean, Ian, I think your sense of cost for college football, for big-time college football,
I guess it's off.
Is shockingly off.
I guess so.
Somebody texted and said that's cheaper than going to a UT game in Knoxville.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
I'm trying to think. What's another? Let's see what Notre Dame, Indiana. Now, again, Indiana's not really bringing anybody, but let's see what Notre Dame, Indiana is going to charge. Again, with StubHub, it's like you click it. It might be the one for the parking pass. Or here you go. Okay, get in price for Indiana, Notre Dame, $462. Want to sit in section 110? It'll be $2,500. Lower level, the cheapest I can see, $618. And again, that's for Indiana, not a traditional power. Granted, it is in Indiana, so there are a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's about a $400 difference according to these.
Again, Ohio State, I was shocked that Ohio State fans are throwing the middle finger to Ryan Day and Ohio State so much.
Texas Clemson's cheaper though.
Is it really?
This one says as low as 66.
That's surprising because I don't think Texas fans are out on Texas, even though they lost to Georgia. But I mean, it's
crazy.
Well,
hopefully it'll be a
Think
fun
about
game.
this. The SEC basketball tournament, even when UK hates their coach, it's more expensive for the SEC men's basketball tournament, which is not a playoff. I mean, it's a playoff of the SEC, but UK's going to the tournament every year and all the other. It is more expensive for the SEC men's basketball tournament than it is for the college football playoff at Ohio State. Unbelievable. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025 the game.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with my realtor, TJ Anderson. The Predators tonight are taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's right. Used to be such a big showdown matchup. Now, both teams, hate to say it, but it is what it is against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins come in at 14-14-5. That's good for 33 points. The Predators, 9-17-6. That's good for 24 points, though the Predators have won 2 out of their last 3. And here is head coach Andrew Burnett.
Before Tampa became Tampa and brought in Point and Cirelli, he played the middle. And I can remember, when he was a little bit of a younger player, he had a lot of speed through the middle of the ice. And I think the byproduct of having Point and Cirelli and those guys kind of put him on the wing a little bit and obviously fit in really good there too. So to see him, I think it gives him a little bit more freedom to skate and have the puck a lot more than sometimes the wing. He's still kind of trying to figure out when he's on the wing, when to do certain things. And he's had the puck more and he's been great. I think he's cleared a lot of space and we're in desperate need of some speed through the middle of the ice, and he's provided that.
And that's on Steven Stamkos headed to the center of the ice. We'll see how that looks tonight. Max will have the pregame show next. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue. Bring the coats. We'll see you tomorrow, too.